Chapter 1456. Coiling Dragonwood in hand. Su Fong looked indifferently at the severely injured experts of Grand Star Hall, his eyes full of mockery. There were dangers everywhere in the boundless secular palace. How could there be an absolutely safe place? These experts of Grand Star Hall were blinded by treasures and really thought they could plunder as much as they wanted here. This medicinal garden was obviously used to grow extremely important medicinal herbs. Of course, it was definitely not some illusory everlasting grass. Those stone statues were actually extremely powerful divine statue puppets. The outer wall was covered with a layer of rocks, which looked no different from ordinary rocks. But as long as someone approached, they would sense the aura and unleash a powerful attack comparable to that of a saint immortal. With Su Fong's perfection ability and the world origin of the boundless secular palace, he easily sensed that there was something wrong with the divine statue puppet. With a little trick, the experts of Grand Star Hall fell for it. 2 died and 1 was seriously injured. What's going on? The people who were collecting spiritual herbs and medicinal herbs in the herb garden rushed over. What a ruthless man! Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Yun Xiao's sharp eyes swept over Su Fong, full of killing intent. Dijin Master suddenly said, "Miss Yun, it's not Su Fong's fault. Your Grand Star Hall's men were too careless." With Dijin Master's intervention, Yun Xiao could only swallow her anger and was full of killing intent toward Su Fong. "Let's go. We've been here for a long time." Dijin Master smiled kindly at Su Fong. Su Fong cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for upholding justice, Dijin Master." They continued to walk toward the depths of the boundless secular palace. Because of the seals and traps in the air and on the ground, they could not fly. They could only walk like mortals. Along the way, they encountered more and more dangers. Gong Yu obviously knew the terrain of the boundless secular palace very well. He led Dijin Master to the place where the coiling dragonwood was. Apparently, Ji Xing Celestial Venerable and the other experts of Grand Star Hall had made up their minds to follow Master Dijin wherever he went. There was no way to get rid of them. Around the coiling dragon tree were a dozen or so stone statues. As soon as the group got close, a series of cracking sounds could be heard as the rocks on their bodies shattered and turned into divine puppets that charged at the group. After so many years, the combat strength of these divine god puppets was still extremely shocking. Every single one of them was comparable to a peak powerhouse at the 9th Dao Saint stage. Boom! Boom! The Grand Star Hall's experts were the first to make a move. Then, Reverend Dijin and Venerable Ji Xing had no choice but to make a move. Because they were afraid of causing the collapse of the world, these 2 peerless masters of the immortal venerable level didn't dare to use their powerful divine powers. They just patiently fought with the statue puppets. After spending a tremendous amount of effort and the lives of 2 experts from the Grand Star Hall, they finally wiped out the dozen or so divine puppets. When they arrived near the coiling dragonwood, they discovered that the coiling dragonwood was actually protected by an invisible array formation. Su Fong exerted his great perfection ability and saw that there were many fine marks around the coiling dragon wood that intertwined to form a tight and powerful array formation. These marks were almost integrated with the void and formed a powerful defensive force. If they wanted to break the array by force, they would have to shatter the void. However, if they did that, the coiling dragonwood would be destroyed. Seeing this, Su Fong's lips curled into a sneer. A mere array formation won't be a problem for the Grand Star Hall. Yun Xiao smiled proudly. Although this woman was arrogant and overbearing, she was indeed from the Grand Star Hall. In order to enter the boundless secular palace, she had made thorough preparations. Among the experts she brought, there was an expert who was proficient in arrays and had a special Taoist artifact that specialized in breaking arrays. After a round of inspection, the formation expert of the Grand Star Hall said helplessly, "I'm incompetent. I can't break this array." Yun Xiao raised her eyebrows and asked, "Why?" The formation expert of the Grand Star Hall answered, This array isn't a spiritual stone array, nor is it created with the power of the world. It's a powerful and marvelous spatial array that uses the power of space as the energy to maintain the defensive ability of the array. It's easy to break the array, but at the same time, the space where the coiling dragon wood is located will collapse, and the coiling dragon wood will be destroyed. It's almost impossible to break the array without destroying the divine wood inside. Damn it! No one can get what I can't get. Yun Xiao was furious that her efforts were in vain. She formed a seal, and was about to bombard the array, intending to destroy it along with the coiling dragon wood. Stop! Master Dijin shouted coldly and released a burst of divine power to stop Yun Xiao from attacking. Yun Xiao was about to get angry when Venerable Ji Xing said, "Miss Yun, please calm down. If the array breaks and causes some unexpected consequences, the loss will outweigh the gain." Yun Xiao had to give up, but she had nowhere to vent her anger. Looking up and seeing Su Fang behind her, Yun Xiao suddenly thought of the 2 Grand Star Hall experts who were killed by Su Fang, and a top expert who was seriously injured. The anger in her heart burned fiercely. Yun Xiao shouted, "Lead the way into the boundless secular palace." Su Fang glanced at the coiling dragon wood and smiled faintly. They didn't waste any more time and went straight to the palace. Soon, they arrived at the palace gate. There was a powerful seal on the gate, but it wasn't as troublesome as the array outside the coiling dragon wood. Su Fang used the world origin of the boundless secular palace to break the seal layer by layer. Boom! The gate of the boundless secular palace suddenly opened. Whoosh! Master Dijin and Venerable Ji Xing moved out almost at the same time and entered the palace. Yun Xiao followed closely behind with the Grand Star Hall experts. At this time, Su Fang suddenly showed a painful expression. His face was dark and his whole body trembled. "Miss Yun, the antidote. The poison has taken effect so quickly? It's a little earlier than expected. It seems that breaking the seal just now has intensified the poison's effect. You can just wait for your death. Are you still thinking about the antidote?" Yun Xiao's eyes were full of coldness and cruelty. Then, she shouted at one of the Grand Star Hall experts, "Go search him. Don't leave a single treasure behind. Then, search his soul and strip his memory." That Grand Star Hall expert walked towards Su Fang with a hideous smile. Bang! Su Fang's legs suddenly shattered, followed by his abdomen, arms, and head. They all shattered and turned into black blood, splashing in all directions. The Grand Star Hall expert was caught off guard and was drenched in blood. His aura was instantly corroded and the blood fell on his body. The expert from Grand Star Hall, whose overall strength had reached the realm of Dual Dao Saint and Immortal, only had time to let out a miserable shriek before his body was corroded by the poisonous blood. His skin and flesh fell off layer by layer, and his flesh and bones were quickly corroded and turned into a part of the blood. In the end, all the blood seeped through the cracks of the stone bricks and disappeared without a trace. What a terrifying scene! Yun Xiao, Gong Yu, and the other Grand Star Hall experts were so frightened that their faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. The poison pill of the Grand Star Hall is so overbearing. Gong Yu looked at Yun Xiao with fear in his eyes. This poison pill, Yun Xiao vaguely felt that something was wrong. Although the poison pill of the Grand Star Hall was extremely powerful, it shouldn't be to this extent. Going against the Grand Star Hall, this is what you deserve. Yun Xiao dispelled the doubts in her heart and led the Grand Star Hall experts to the palace. Gong Yu looked at the place where the blood disappeared and was puzzled. After Gong Yu entered the palace, a ribbon of blood rolled up from the cracks of the stone bricks and condensed into a body. "You guys can play with those divine puppets and array traps in the palace. I, Su Fang, will not accompany you. I'll settle the score with you after I devour the coiling dragon wood." Su Fang smiled coldly and strode toward the back garden. Coiling dragon wood. Su Fang came to the array around the coiling dragon wood. His eyes flickered with vigor. Luo praised from the blood jade in his body. The coiling dragon wood is an extremely precious divine wood in the myriad of worlds. Su Fang, you've really made a fortune this time. Hee, it seems like the luck brought to me by the purple Qi Dharma spirit is still there. Su Fang smiled proudly. First, he activated the life-shrinking art and used the Tao runes of fate to burn the imprint left by Sage Dezhen in his primordial spirit. Qi. Sage Dezhen used a Buddhist magic to shackle Su Fang's primordial spirit, which was different from other cultivators. Even an immortal venerable expert would find it hard to break through the shackles. However, under the supreme power of the life-shrinking art of fate, any kind of primordial spirit restriction art would be incinerated. In less than 3 breaths, the shackles on his primordial spirit were completely removed. Then, Su Fang shattered his physical body again and turned into a thin blood ribbon, which passed through the cracks of the array very deftly, without touching the array at all. After entering the array, Su Fang reformed his physical body. Sensing the strong vitality emitted by the coiling dragon wood, Su Fang's cells began to breathe on their own. The dragon-taming wood, which had fused with his physical body, also became active. After a sudden tremor, it was full of vitality. It was about to devour the coiling dragon wood. Buzz. His consummate sensing ability suddenly sensed 2 auras coming straight here. It turned out to be Sage Dezhen and immortal venerable Ji Xing. Fortunately, Su Fang had fused with the world origin of the boundless secular palace, so his consummate ability was doubled here. In addition, the 2 of them did not dare to use their body movement here. Otherwise, when they sensed their arrival, Su Fang would not be able to react in time. Su Fang hid behind a tree and immediately activated his natal power, reaching the natal state. Then, he activated the Xian Wang 6 Paths Pagoda and the dragon-taming real body. Su Fang's whole body was filled with the power of wood, and his aura underwent an absolute change in an instant, quickly merging with the aura of the coiling dragon wood. Then, Su Fang activated the life-shrinking art of fate to cover up all the other auras. After all this was done, whoosh! Immortal Venerable Ji Xing and Sage Dezhen appeared outside the array. He's not here. It seems that Su Fang must have escaped from the boundless secular palace, Immortal Venerable Ji Xing said resentfully. This Miss Yun of the Great Star Hall is simply an idiot, except for her temper. She doesn't even know the famous demonic technique of the Netherworld Blood Sea. Sage Dezhen snorted. It's all our fault for being too impatient. We wanted to enter the palace to look for treasures, which gave Su Fang an opportunity to take advantage of. Immortal Venerable Ji Xing was not reconciled. Not only is he not afraid of the poisonous pills of the Great Star Hall, but he can also easily dissolve the shackles of my vital spirit. Such means are simply incredible. When we get out of the boundless secular palace, we'll join hands to kill him, so as to avoid future troubles. That heaven-defying divine artifact belongs to me, and I'll help the Great Star Hall. A divine artifact that can attract the attention of the heavenly way can only be obtained by the destined one. Sage Dezhen, we'd better rely on our strength and luck. The 2 of them did not find any trace of Su Fang. After a short discussion, they quickly left the place. After waiting for an hour, there was no further movement. Su Fang activated the dragon-taming real body and pressed his right hand, which had turned into a dragon claw, on the trunk of the coiling dragon wood. Chapter 1457. The wood element essence of the coiling dragon wood turned into a green immortal light and surged towards Su Fang's palm. Su Fang was surprised to find that the wood element essence of the coiling dragon would also contain a very strong dragon chi. It was undoubtedly a great tonic for the dragon subduing true body. The coiling dragon wood was worthy of being a spiritual object of heaven and earth. When the dragon subduing true body devoured some of its wood element essence, it immediately produced a very strong resistance. The tree could not help but tremble. This coiling dragon wood had clearly formed its own consciousness. However, because it was on the verge of death, its consciousness had become very weak. All that was left was an instinctive resistance. Come, you will sooner or later exhaust all your wood element essence here. You will turn into a withered tree and dissipate in the abyss of stars. I have the power you like here. Moreover, if you become a part of my dragon-subduing true body, you can continue to live. Su Fang sent a wisp of his consciousness to the coiling dragon wood, then stopped the devouring of the dragon-subduing true body. Instead, he merged the yang qi into the wood element energy and returned it to the coiling dragon wood. Yang qi was essential to any life. After sensing Su Fang's yang qi and wood element energy, the coiling dragon wood trembled excitedly. It enjoyed Su Fang's aura very much. After the yang qi and wood element energy merged with the coiling dragon wood, Su Fang activated the dragon-subduing true body again and slowly absorbed the wood element essence of the coiling dragon wood into his body. This time, the coiling dragon wood's consciousness no longer resisted and allowed Su Fang to devour the wood element essence. After absorbing the essence of the coiling dragon wood, the dragon-subduing true body extended into his flesh and meridians at an astonishing speed. Su Fang felt all the cells in his body become active and full of vitality. The parts of his arms and chest that were previously fused with the dragon-subduing wood became even more closely integrated with his body. At the same time, the dragon-subduing wood continued to extend towards his abdomen. After Su Fang absorbed all the essence of the coiling dragon wood, the dragon-subduing wood extended all the way to his knees. Only the parts below his calf were not fused. Not only that, Su Fang felt a majestic vitality and dragon qi roaring and boiling in his body. After all the wood element essence was absorbed, the coiling dragon wood became a withered tree. It would not be long before it turned into a pile of ashes. He activated his dragon-subduing true body. Su Fang could not help but let out a dragon's roar. It was distant, clear and melodious, filled with an astonishing divine might that could deter all living things. Above his calf, a majestic dragon qi burst out. Under the effect of the Dragon Clan's power, Su Fang's physical body immediately transformed into a dragon. His hands turned into dragon claws, and two strange horns grew out of his head. Su Fang felt his whole body brimming with power. After transforming into the half-dragon state, it was only slightly inferior to the giant diamond body. However, the time he could maintain this state was much longer than the giant diamond body. Su Fang returned to his normal state. Then, he took out a flying sword and cut a large wound on his left arm. Then, he slightly activated his dragon-subduing true body and Black Lotus true body. The dragon-subduing true body and Black Lotus true body in his flesh, blood, and meridians quickly spread to the wound, and then new flesh and blood grew. The wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving not even a mark. Just a little bit more and the dragon-subduing true body will mature. The transformation of the dragon-subduing true body made Su Fang very excited. At this time, Su Fang had the ability of the underworld blood sea to devour life essence. The Black Lotus true body had the ability to breed and restore life force. Coupled with the powerful life force and dragon qi of the dragon-subduing true body, his life force and recovery ability had become extremely astonishing. He no longer had as many scruples as before when activating the life-shrinking technique. Moreover, Su Fang speculated that if the dragon-subduing true body matured, his body would be able to transform into a divine dragon, and not a dragon man like the Long family in the heavenly Tao immortal world. The power of the Dragon Clan's magical power would certainly skyrocket. Now that I have the coiling dragon wood, the next step is to find something to perfect the purple Qi Dharma spirit, and that heaven-defying divine weapon. Su Fang turned into a blood ribbon again, and drilled out of the formation outside the coiling dragon wood. He activated the purple Qi Dharma spirit, and at the same time, He also activated the life-shrinking technique and the great perfection ability to sense the location of the heaven-defying divine weapon. Immediately, countless Tao characters flashed in the divine aperture ocean, and the purple Chi Dharma spirit roared again in his body, ready to come out at any time. What on earth is that divine weapon? Why is the purple Chi Dharma spirit so excited? Su Fang was full of expectations. The strange thing was that the location of the divine weapon was constantly changing and drifting, making it difficult to pinpoint its exact location. Obviously, it was set up with a powerful defensive formation. First, I have to find a way to get the divine weapon and perfect the purple Chi Dharma spirit. Then, I'll deal with True Essence Master and the people of the Grand Star Hall. Su Fang made up his mind and went straight to the boundless secular palace. There were many passages and countless rooms in the boundless secular palace. There must be treasures left in the rooms, but after so many years, even if there were any treasures, their use was very limited. Su Fang didn't lack treasures, and he was even more curious about the so-called heaven-defying divine weapon. His main goal was the purple Chi Dharma spirit. Therefore, after Su Fang entered the palace, he didn't stop at all. The passages in the palace extended in all directions, so he didn't have to worry about running into True Essence Master and the people of the Grand Star Hall Chamber of Commerce. Along the way, Su Fang encountered innumerable divine statue puppets and corpse puppets. There were also innumerable seals, formations, and traps in some vital places. Fortunately, Su Fang had merged with the world origin of the boundless secular palace. Otherwise, he didn't know how much trouble he would have encountered along the way. The boundless secular palace covered a large area, and the passages in it were like a maze. It took Su Fang half a month to finally reach a hall in the depths of the palace. The Treasure Refining Hall. Even after so many years, the words on the plaque above the hall were still shining with golden light. This plaque was obviously an extraordinary doctrine artifact. This hall was called the Treasure Refining Hall. Apparently, it was the place where the boundless secular palace refined their magic treasures. The heaven-defying divine weapon Su Fang sensed was in this hall. Su Fang regulated his breathing and calmed his mind. A heaven-defying divine weapon that could attract the attention of the heavenly way must be extremely important to the boundless secular palace. Naturally, there would be layers of powerful formations in the hall. The more important the treasure was, the calmer one had to be. Many people had died because of greed. Su Fang had learned this lesson. Just as he was about to enter the hall, his consummate ability suddenly sensed the aura of True Essence Master and Gong Yu, and they were rapidly approaching. How can they be so fast? Su Fang was shocked. On second thought, Su Fang understood. True Essence Master had the Gong Yu. With the protection of the Gong Yu, the god puppets and corpse refining puppets in the palace would not attack them. Moreover, Gong Yu's ancestor was an elder of the boundless secular palace. He must know the location of the heaven-defying divine weapon. With an accurate target, they only needed to be careful to avoid the seals and formations. Su Fang raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a cold smile. He stood with his hands behind his back, waiting for True Essence Master and Gong Yu at the entrance of the hall. "It's you, Su Fang." True Essence Master and Gong Yu appeared at the entrance of the hall. As soon as they saw Su Fang, they both exclaimed in disbelief. "I thought you had escaped from the boundless secular palace. I didn't expect you to covet my heaven-defying divine weapon. You're really courting death." True Essence Master smiled coldly, looking at Su Fang as if he was looking at a dead man. After forming a seal, a golden Buddhist aura burst out from his body, condensing into a huge golden palm print, like a Buddha's hand. With a terrifying and ferocious momentum that could suppress heaven and earth, it crushed toward Su Fang. "I'd like to experience the divine sense of Buddhism." Su Fang's body burst out with monstrous dragon chi, shattering True Essence Master's shackles. From his legs, he quickly transformed into a dragon. This was the true body of a divine dragon, unlike the long family in the heavenly law immortal world who only looked like a divine dragon on the surface of their skin after activating dragon chi. If the dragon-subduing real body matured, he could even transform into a real divine dragon. In a flash, Su Fang was like a divine dragon descending to the world. A domineering, mighty, and domineering momentum rose in defiance of the heavens. Yellow Tyrant Dragon Claw equals N_1! Su Fang's right arm shook and a huge golden claw print of nearly 10 feet appeared, with a terrifying momentum that could tear the sky, overbearing and as fast as lightning. At this time, Su Fang activated the dragon-subduing real body and used the divine sense of the Dragon Clan. He really burst out the full power of the divine sense of the Dragon Clan. Compared to the power displayed by immortal Emperor Tianong, it was more than 10 times, or even 100 times stronger. Dragon Clan Cultivation Method? Are you related to the Dragon Clan? True Essence Master's eyes showed a hint of fear. Boom. Boom. True Essence Master's Buddhist palm print was crushed by Su Fang's claw print, and the claw print did not weaken, grabbing toward True Essence Master. Bang! True Essence Master put his hands together, and a golden Buddhist aura burst out under his feet, quickly condensing into a golden lotus. The scattered golden light formed a light shield, tightly protecting his body. Golden Lotus Buddha Dust. The claw print landed on the golden light shield with a muffled sound. After a violent tremor, the claw print was shattered, but the golden light shield was intact. Su Fang took advantage of the situation and directly activated the divine dragon's power. He punched the golden light shield, causing an earth-shattering explosion. True Essence Master's golden lotus Buddha dust did not shatter, but his body was shaken, and he was forced to retreat more than 10 feet before he could stabilize himself. After absorbing the coiling dragon wood, the dragon-subduing real body had undergone a great transformation, and the divine sense of the Dragon Clan was so powerful. Buddhist cultivators are really powerful. Su Fang praised, turned around, and stepped into the main hall. Where do you think you're going? A peerless celestial prime expert, a Buddhist cultivator who could challenge powerhouses above his level, was defeated by a cultivator in the 4 Tao Saint immortal realm. Moreover, not long ago, True Essence Master was shackled like a weakling. No matter how good True Essence Master's temperament was, he was embarrassed and angry at this moment. After a roar, he chased after Su Fang. You're courting death. Su Fang's cold voice sounded. Then, a black-robed man suddenly appeared and punched him. Boom. Master Dijin didn't expect that Su Fang would dare to fight back before leaving. What's more, he didn't expect that the immortal demon monster would be so powerful. He was sent flying by a strange and incomparably powerful force and fell more than 100 feet away. After sitting cross-legged on the ground for a long time, True Essence Master spat out a mouthful of blood and smashed a big hole in the ground. That man is the peerless expert by Su Fang's side? What a strange power! What a powerful strength! Didn't Celestial Prime Ji Xing say that this man was seriously injured and would not be able to recover in tens of thousands of years? Why is he still so powerful? True Essence Master looked at the door of the treasure refining palace with awe and fear in his eyes. Gong Yu's handsome face was also filled with shock and surprise. Due to an urgent matter in the afternoon, the 5 p.m. chapter will be updated at night. Please forgive me for the inconvenience. =_our download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1458. Dijin Master swallowed a pellet and rushed into the treasure refining palace, regardless of his injuries. Gong Yu said, Senior, there's no need to worry. For that heaven-defying divine artifact, the last palace master of the boundless secular palace didn't hesitate to move the entire boundless secular palace to the depths of the star abyss. How could the treasure refining palace not have powerful defenses? Is that so? Dijin Master raised his white eyebrows. It's absolutely true. According to the notes of the ancestor of the Celestial Palace, there is an extremely powerful space formation inside the treasure refining palace. If you go through the wrong portal to the palace, you will be directly sent to the deepest part of the star abyss. At that time, even if you are a celestial master, you will be severely injured, if not killed. Even if Su Fong has incredible divine powers, entering the treasure refining palace at this time, he will most likely die. Dijin Master's eyes flashed. He looked at Gong Yu and asked, "Do you know how to enter the palace?" Gong Yu said, "The ancestor of the divine palace was a high-level member of the boundless secular palace. After the boundless secular palace was moved here, he entered the weapon refining training hall many times. Naturally, there are clear records of how to enter and exit the treasure refining hall in the notes he left behind." Dijin Master nodded and said, "That's good. When I get the divine artifact, I will help you collect all the treasures in the boundless Red World Palace and give them to you. In the future, if the Celestial Palace family is in trouble, I will definitely help." "Thank you, Senior." Gong Yu looked overjoyed, but there was a trace of coldness in his deep eyes. Su Fong stepped into the treasure refining palace. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. What appeared in front of him was a chaotic, twisted haze of void. Where could he see the divine artifact? Buzz! He activated the divine life contraction skill and the purple chi dharma spirit. He sensed that the divine artifact that caused the purple chi dharma spirit to move was here. But he couldn't see it, not even with his consummate ability. That was because the space was distorted and chaotic, which affected his consummate ability. However, with his perfect eye power, he was able to see that in the distorted area of space, there were formations formed by dense seals. They were like doors, and there were as many as 12 of them. Moreover, these doors were not fixed, but were constantly shifting and changing. Among the 12 doors, one of them must lead to the location of that heaven-defying divine artifact. As for which door it is, it's very difficult to determine. The palace master of the boundless secular palace seems to have put in a lot of effort to avoid the heavens' punishment. Even if an outsider were to come here, it would be difficult for him to enter. Once he made the wrong choice, he would be in mortal danger. However, this is not a problem for my Su Fong. Second primordial spirit. Su Fong smiled arrogantly. Whoosh! The second primordial spirit shot out from between the monster's eyebrows and entered a spatial portal. At the same time, Su Fong also began to form seals, releasing astonishing primordial spirit divine might to sense the aura of his second primordial spirit, forming a connection between the primordial spirits. The projection of the primordial spirit was an astonishing ability that allowed one to transcend space-time. There was no need to worry about the second primordial spirit getting lost in the spatial array. The second primordial spirit entered the spatial portal and saw all kinds of terrifying scenes of destruction in the depths of the star abyss. It couldn't help but tremble with fear. If it entered the wrong spatial portal and entered the star abyss, it would be very difficult for the monster to escape with its current strength. That would be called a trap to its death. Whoosh! The second primordial spirit came out of the spatial portal, then entered the second one, the third one until the 9th portal. The second primordial spirit's eyes saw the scene in the center of the hall instead of the terrifying scenes in the depths of the star abyss. Found it. Whoosh! Su Fong took a step forward, activating the divine might of the world to form a defense around his body, and then entered the spatial portal. After a moment of dizziness, Su Fong found himself in the main hall of the treasure refining palace. The main hall was very spacious. There were 4 20-zhang tall god puppets, which were much more powerful than the ones Su Fong saw outside. There was a huge weapon cauldron in the center of the divine puppets. However, it was shattered into pieces, as if it had been blown apart by a terrifying force. Next to the broken cauldron, there was a naked person sitting cross-legged. Yes, it was indeed a person. He looked like a normal person, but there was no aura. It was actually a corpse without any aura. Strangely, it was this corpse that made Su Fong feel extreme danger. After countless years, this corpse did not decompose, which made Su Fong feel even more incredulous. Not simple. This corpse was definitely not simple. On the ground in front of the corpse, there was a large red Taoist robe. Next to it was a head and some ashes. Clearly, a cultivator had died next to the corpse, and the body had long been turned into ashes. N_R. Looking at the broken cauldron next to the corpse, Su Fongda could tell that this cauldron was definitely of a much higher level than the heavenly creation cauldron. It might even be better than the Xianming lightning cauldron. This cauldron was not a Tao artifact, but a divine artifact used to refine magic treasures. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The purple Chi Dharma spirit kept boiling in his body, looking very excited. Could it be because of this broken cauldron? It shouldn't be. Even if it was a divine artifact, the purple Chi Dharma spirit would not be so excited. Su Fong was not surprised. He sealed the purple Chi Dharma spirit and released a corpse refining puppet. Go! The corpse refinement puppets walked towards the corpse with large strides. At first, they were unharmed, but when they were 30 meters away from the corpse, one of the divine statue puppets suddenly opened its eyes and shot out a crimson profound light. Chi! The corpse refining puppet turned into ashes in an instant. What a powerful divine statue puppet! It's actually at the level of a celestial venerable. You can imagine how powerful the boundless secular palace was in the past. It must be more than that. Su Fong activated his full circle ability to sense the corpse's surroundings. Sure enough, there was a circular array formed by countless ancient seal runes and traces around the corpse. The source of the array's power was actually the corpse. A corpse could actually maintain an incomparably powerful ancient array, and it was still in operation. Strange, it's really strange. Su Fong was puzzled. Suddenly, Law's shocked voice came from the blood jade in his body. The boundless secular palace is indeed extraordinary, and shocking. Law, what did you see? Sense the corpse carefully. Maybe you'll find some clues. Is there something wrong with the corpse? Su Fong used his full circle ability to sense the corpse. The next moment, Su Fong's expression changed instantly. This was not a corpse, but a Taoist artifact. This corpse was not a physical body, but a Taoist palace of heaven and earth that Su Fong had never seen before. It was a liquid state formed by the fusion of precious gems, immortal stones, spiritual veins, primordial stones, and other spiritual objects and materials that Su Fong had never seen before. The real core of a magic weapon was the Taoist palace of heaven and earth. It was the skeleton of a magic weapon in the shape of a sword, saber, pagoda, tripod, and so on. It was the first time Su Fong had seen the Taoist palace of heaven and earth in human form. It was similar to Su Fong's Black Lotus real body and Dragon Subduing real body. Blood threads grew in the meridians of the body and eventually became a human body. The Taoist palace of heaven and earth was a Taoist artifact created from the materials inside by the fire magic. What shocked Su Fong even more was that inside the human-shaped Taoist artifact, in addition to the lack of a cultivator's physical body, there were countless meridians, divine apertures, and dantian formed by formations and seals. There was also an original spirit that was like a human's soul sleeping in the body. A human-shaped Taoist artifact. Is this the heaven-defying divine artifact that almost brought the boundless secular palace to the heavenly punishment? Su Fong was so shocked that his heart was pounding. Law let out a long sigh. I think you're right. That should be the case. The boundless secular palace and Emperor Tianbao refined such a heaven-defying divine artifact that is almost like a god. It would be strange if the heavenly Tao didn't notice such a heaven-defying act. The boundless secular palace and Emperor Tianbao refined a god. Su Fong was completely dumbfounded. The main person who refined this divine artifact should be Emperor Tianbao. Not only is his talent in refining unparalleled, but his understanding of cultivation has also reached a level that you can't imagine. If this person can enter the myriad worlds, he may even reach the peak of the myriad worlds. Luo admired and even felt ashamed of his inferiority. Emperor Tianbao was indeed the #1 refiner in the past. He was probably the only one who could refine such a peerless spiritual treasure as the purple Qi Dharma spirit. To be able to refine a god? What kind of amazing refining level did this require? His understanding of cultivation must have exceeded the limits of the myriad world. Whether it's refining elixirs, refining weapons, or cultivation, the essence is the same when you reach the peak. Su Fang, if you can get the inheritance of Emperor Tianbao and find the forbidden spell to refine the human-shaped Taoist artifact, it will not only help your refining level, but also your cultivation world. That's right. Su Fang's heart was filled with eagerness. Su Fang cultivated the 9 changes of the 9 suns and cultivated the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace, which was surprisingly similar to the divine artifact refined by Emperor Tianbao. This was because both had reached the essence of cultivation. If Su Fang could comprehend Emperor Tianbao's method of refining the divine artifact, it would be of great help to his cultivation world. But this divine artifact is not perfect, which caused the artifact's spirit to fall into a deep sleep. It only has a strong physical body, which is not very useful. It seems that Emperor Tianbao failed. Strange, why can't I see his body around the divine artifact? Even if his body rotted, there should be a Taoist robe left. Su Fang's gaze swept across the hall, and he discovered other unusual places. The red Taoist robe in front of the human-shaped divine artifact was similar to the divine palace Taoist robe worn by Gong Yu. Su Fang judged that this person should be the palace master of the boundless secular palace. He wondered why he died here. After searching the hall for a while, Su Fang finally found something. On the side of the hall there was a side chamber, which should be a place for people to rest. On the floor of the side chamber there was a mummy. Although the skin and flesh had dried up, the bones were intact. The mummy was wearing a purple Taoist robe, and there was a token at his waist with the words, "Purple Light Sacred Ground," written on it. This mummy was undoubtedly Emperor Tianbao. =_our download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1459. After removing the seal, the purple Qi Dharma spirit quivered violently and quieted down, as if grieving for the death of its creator. Purple light sacred ground. According to Family Su's ancestor, the purple Qi Dharma spirit came from the purple light sacred ground in the macro world. This body was undoubtedly Emperor Tianbao's. From the micro world to the macro world, Su Fang's goal was not only to find the third part of the purple Qi Dharma spirit, but also to find out its origin. The purple Qi Dharma spirit was refined by Emperor Tianbao, who came from the purple light sacred ground. Although Emperor Tianbao had died long ago, Su Fang's wish had been fulfilled. For some reason, he felt a little empty in his heart. He had figured out the origin of the purple Qi Dharma spirit, but he had not found the thing that could make it perfect. Su Fang bowed deeply to Emperor Tianbao, his heart full of admiration. Such a peerless blacksmith was worthy of his worship. Su Fang's eyes fell on the space between Emperor Tianbao's eyebrows. His eyebrows raised, his eyes filled with surprise. There was a very obvious hole between Emperor Tianbao's eyebrows. On closer inspection, there was a fist-sized hole in his dantian. Emperor Tianbao didn't die in a normal way. His dantian and divine aperture were destroyed. That's why he died. The person who killed him was the palace master of the boundless secular palace. This discovery caused Su Fang to be extremely shocked. Storage ring. Su Fang's eyes lit up when he saw the ancient storage ring on Emperor Tianbao's shriveled right middle finger. He went forward and carefully removed the storage ring from Emperor Tianbao's finger. This storage ring was obviously extraordinary. After so many years, the internal space of the storage ring was not broken. When Su Fong peeled off a wisp of his consciousness and entered the storage ring, he was unexpectedly blocked by a seal. That's strange. Logically speaking, Emperor Tianbao's consciousness should have died long ago, and the storage ring should have become an ownerless item. It should be easy to enter the inner space. Just as he was puzzled, the purple Qi Dharma spirit in his body suddenly trembled, and a burst of purple Qi was injected into the storage ring. Buzz, a purple Xian Guang shot out from the storage ring and condensed into a human figure in the void in front of him. This person wore a purple Taoist robe. His hair and beard were snow white, and his eyes were deep like the boundless starry sky. They were filled with wisdom and experience. Emperor Tianbao? Emperor Tianbao still has a consciousness left behind. Su Fong was dumbfounded. Then, Su Fong realized that this shadow was not some kind of primordial spirit consciousness, but a will of the human figure without any consciousness. Before I died, I set up a restriction in my storage ring and left behind this will. Only those from the Purple Light Sacred Mountain can open it. The old voice of the projection spoke. Since you can see me, you must be an expert from the Purple Light Sacred Mountain. Unfortunately, I can no longer see my people. Although Su Fong was not from the Purple Light Sacred Mountain, and the Purple Light Sacred Mountain might have disappeared in the river of history, Su Fong had merged with the Purple Qi Dharma spirit, so he was no different from a member of the Purple Light Sacred Mountain. When I died, my divine aperture and dantian were fatally wounded. I used the last bit of my willpower to leave this will. It doesn't exist for a long time, so I'm going to make it short. You should listen carefully. Emperor Tianbao's will said slowly. In my life, my refining skills were unparalleled in the great world. The ancient people surpassed the limits of the great world and comprehended the great Tao of refining. They cultivated their bodies as Taoist artifacts. If they reached the peak, they would definitely be able to cross the peak of the great world and enter the myriad realms. Unfortunately, I spent my life on refining but neglected my cultivation. When I comprehended the great Tao, my vitality was almost exhausted, and I was not far from the end of my life. Su Fong sighed. Vitality was the foundation of a cultivator. The ultimate goal of a cultivator's cultivation was to pursue the legendary immortality. However, in fact, even the deities in the myriad realms had their vitality depleted, let alone the immortals of the great world. Even the peak immortal venerables could not escape death. Emperor Tianbao's refining skills were incredible. However, the more a peerless figure indulged in refining weapons or elixirs, the less they cared about cultivation. Their vitality was usually not as good as other cultivators at the same level. I'm not afraid of death, but I can't accept the fact that I failed to achieve my life's great ambition. In order to achieve my great ambition, I decided to use my life's comprehension to refine a peerless divine artifact, a deity. At this point, the eyes of the wills will flashed with a hearty light. An arrogant and domineering aura rose in defiance of the heavens. In the last 1,000,000 years before the end of my lifespan, this old man searched all over the macro world, collecting all kinds of spiritual items, gems, raw stones, and other materials from all over the universe. Then, I came to the boundless secular palace, borrowed their refining divine artifacts, and prepared to forge a divine artifact. My comprehension was good. Under my meticulous refining, the divine artifact's palace of heaven's way gradually took shape. It seemed that the heaven-defying divine artifact was about to be born in my hands. But just as the palace of heaven's way was about to take shape, I sensed a kind of heavenly will that wanted to destroy this heaven-defying Tao artifact, and I would be punished by the heavens. How heaven-defying is it for me to refine a deity as a cultivator of the great world? It would be strange if the heavenly Tao tolerated me. Although I can't become a deity, I can go against the heavens once before I die. My life is not in vain. Ha ha! The heavenly treasure emperors will shadow burst into laughter. It was wild and unrestrained. Su Fang also felt his blood boil. Such a peerless figure had done such a heaven-defying thing. He could die without regret. I wanted to take the incomplete divine artifact and leave the boundless secular palace to avoid implicating others. But the palace master said that I was going against the will of the heavens by refining the artifact here. The boundless secular palace had been tainted with karma and could not escape the heavens' punishment. In the end, the palace master dismissed all the cultivators and moved the entire boundless secular palace to the star abyss between the two star fields to avoid the heavens' punishment. At first, this old man was filled with admiration and gratitude for the actions of the master of the boundless secular palace. Who would have thought that the master of the boundless secular world palace would suddenly attack me and destroy my dantian and divine aperture right after the divine weapon was formed? It turned out that he had already made up his mind to take the divine artifact for himself. Su Fang sighed when he heard that. Who wouldn't be greedy for such a peerless divine artifact? Compared to such a divine artifact, the boundless secular palace was nothing. The boundless secular palace could be rebuilt if it was destroyed. With a divine artifact, it could be said that it could move unhindered in the macro world. Who could resist it? Moreover, the palace master dared to do this because he had thought of a way to avoid the heavens' punishment after obtaining the divine artifact. After all, the boundless secular palace had a certain connection with the myriad world. Although Emperor Tianbao's refining skills were unprecedented and would be unmatched in the future, in terms of scheming and shrewdness, he was far inferior to the palace master. At the very least, he did not have the heart to defend himself. I am a man who is nearing the end of his life. So what if I die? However, the divine artifact that I have poured my heart and soul into has yet to be completed. The master of the boundless secular palace has acted too early. I have two proudest works in my life. One is the purple Chi Dharma spirit, and the other is this divine artifact. However, the purple Chi Dharma spirit isn't perfect. I originally planned to let the purple Chi Dharma spirit absorb the great pregnant purple Chi when the divine artifact was born, making it perfect. But in the end, I died in the hands of a villain. The divine artifact was not completed, and the purple Chi Dharma spirit was not perfect. I can't accept this. At this point, the Emperor Tianbao's will let out a sigh full of unwillingness. The figure then became blurry. Su Fang came to a sudden realization. Every magic treasure would produce great pregnant purple Chi when it was completed. However, the great pregnant purple Chi produced by magic treasures differed in quality. For such a heaven-defying divine artifact, the great pregnant purple Chi produced before it was completed must be incomparably amazing. It was certain that the purple Chi Dharma spirit would be able to reach a perfect state after absorbing it. I was sneakily attacked by the palace master of the boundless secular palace. When I was dying, the purple Chi Dharma spirit was separated from my body and sent to the depths of the star abyss through a space array. I don't know where it ended up. My clansmen, you must find a way to retrieve the purple Chi Dharma spirit and let it absorb the great pregnant purple Chi when the divine artifact was completed. In this way, the perfect purple Chi Dharma spirit will bring unparalleled fortune to the Purple Light Sacred Mountain and protect our clansmen forever. I see. Su Fang finally understood the ins and outs of the purple Chi Dharma spirit. And the method I used to refine the divine artifact is actually a kind of cultivation grade Tao. It can allow our clansmen to cultivate to a certain level. They will definitely be able to cross the peak of the macro world and reach the end of the world. The way to complete the divine artifact is actually very simple. That is to awaken the artifact's spirit that I have carefully cultivated. Puff, the purple light flickered rapidly, then shattered into bits of starlight and dissipated into nothingness. Su Fang was completely dumbfounded. What method could he use to awaken the artifact spirit? How could the will Dharma spirit dissipate at such a critical moment? After being stunned for a long time, Su Fong separated a wisp of his consciousness and entered the storage ring. The storage ring was empty. There were no piles of peerless Taoist artifacts or treasures as Su Fong had imagined. There was only one jade slip, which contained Grandmaster Tianbao's lifetime experience in refining artifacts. However, it did not contain his cultivation method of the great Tao of artifact refining, nor did it contain any method to awaken the original spirit of the divine artifact. Su Fong was very depressed. It did not matter whether he could obtain the divine artifact or not. The key was that the purple Qi Dharma spirit needed to devour the great pregnant purple Qi produced before the divine artifact was born to become perfect. Activating the power of the great completeness, he carefully searched Grandmaster Tianbao's body. Other than the token of the purple light sacred ground, which represented his identity, he did not find anything valuable. Su Fong put away the token, then knelt down and kowtowed to Grandmaster Tianbao 3 times respectfully. Only then did he bury Grandmaster Tianbao's body in the Zhenlong realm. The Zhenlong realm was a space Dharma treasure refined by Grandmaster Tianbao himself. Burying him in the Zhenlong realm would be the best place for him to go. After returning to the main hall, Su Fong looked at the human-shaped divine artifact and was at a loss of what to do. The array around the divine artifact was not a problem for Su Fong. The key was the 4 extremely powerful divine puppets, which were equivalent to 4 celestial primes. It was not easy to get past their defense and obtain the divine artifact. However, it was not impossible for Su Fong to do so. While he was thinking of a solution, Su Fong's expression suddenly changed. He immediately released the Wuling Goblin and swallowed it. The Wuling Goblin turned into a stone belt and jumped onto the thick beam of the main hall. Then, it disappeared into the pattern of a flaming stone sculpture. At the same time, Su Fong activated the divine power of earth and the life-shortening skill to hide his aura to the extreme. The next moment, Master Dizhen brought Gong Yu through the space array and arrived in the main hall. =R download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1460. An immortal supremacy's sensing ability was extremely shocking. Su Fong did not even dare to hide in the true dragon realm. Instead, he relied on the Demon King of Black Ridge's innate ability, the heavenly secret life shrinking technique, and the earth element's divine power. Wuling Goblin had become a demon emperor 200 years ago, and his earth elemental divine power was much stronger than before. Coupled with the life-shrinking technique and the earth elemental divine power of Xian Huang's 6 Paths Pagoda, it was impossible for Dizhen Master to sense Su Fong's existence. Dizhen Master entered the treasure refining palace. His eyes flickered as he scanned the hall. Dizhen Master heaved a sigh of relief when he didn't find Su Fong. Su Fong didn't make it into the treasure refining palace. Gong Yu smiled and said, "This man has many amazing divine abilities and Tao artifacts, but he died in the Star Abyss when he got his hands on a divine artifact. What a pity." Dizhen Master shook his head and said, "Don't underestimate this man. I don't think he will die so easily in the Star Abyss. But even if he did escape, he must have lost a lot of his vitality." Dizhen Master was shocked when he saw the corpse-like divine artifact. He found it unbelievable. Gong Yu's eyes didn't show much surprise. Apparently, he already knew this. However, when he saw the red Taoist robe in front of the divine artifact, he had a complicated look in his eyes. He naturally knew who the owner of the robe was. That corpse is the divine artifact forged by the boundless secular palace. After sensing for a while, Dizhen Master found some clues and revealed an incomparably shocked expression equals N_R. Not to mention a celestial venerable expert like him, even a peak celestial venerable expert or a deity from the heavens would have the same expression when they saw such a divine artifact. Gong Yu said, "That's right. That is the divine artifact forged by the last palace lord of the boundless secular palace." Divine artifact. Dijin Master's eyes flashed with a terrifying light. At the same time, Master Dijin also realized the power of the 4 divine puppets and the array formation around the divine artifact. After hesitating for a long time, Dijin's eyes revealed a decisive look. Then, a layer of golden Buddhist aura suddenly appeared on his body, and the sound of his bones and muscles expanding and growing could be heard from his body. Boom! Boom! Dijin Master's body began to expand rapidly, turning into a giant more than 10 feet tall. His whole body emitted a golden Buddhist aura, filled with astonishing power. In addition, Dijin Master's eyes were wide open, and a solemn and holy aura was released, as if he was an angry Vajra. Gigantified diamond body. Su Feng, who was hiding in the Wooling Goblin's body, saw what was happening to Dijin Master's body with the help of his divine power. He was so shocked that he almost screamed. Luo said, "This is not the gigantified diamond body, but a divine ability of the Buddhist sect called Buddha's Fury Diamond Body. It is far inferior to your gigantified diamond body. However, the Buddhist sect used to be a unique branch in the macro world. Their divine abilities and Buddhist artifacts are very amazing. Moreover, the Buddhist aura has a purifying effect on the divine abilities of the devil tribe and the evil path. It is very powerful and should not be underestimated." Although Dijin Master's cultivation realm is the same as Ji Xing Immortal Venerable, he is stronger than Ji Xing Immortal Venerable in terms of strength. The divine abilities of the Buddhist sect are really extraordinary. If we can kill Dijin Master, take his inheritance, and let the monk Shangda cultivate it, maybe he will have a chance to become a celestial venerable expert. That monk Shangda is greedy and afraid of death. His strength is not strong enough now. Is he worth your effort to cultivate him? The monk has been with me for a long time. If I can help him, he will not have served me for such a long time in vain. In the blink of an eye, Dijin Master took a step forward and rushed to the front of a statue puppet. After quickly forming a seal, he struck out a 10-feet-long golden Buddha palm print. Ka. A layer of rock on the statue puppet's body shattered. Then, it brandished a 3-feet-long sword and slashed out violently. Boom! Dijin Master's palm print was shattered by the statue puppet's unstoppable sword. Then, the divine statue puppet took a large step forward, charging out in a domineering and powerful manner. Its momentum was like a rainbow, unstoppable. Boom boom boom! Dijin Master activated the Buddha's Fury Diamond Body and began to fight with the statue puppet. The collision of their momentum caused a series of explosions, shaking the treasure refining palace. Fortunately, the treasure refining palace was stabilized by arrays everywhere. Otherwise, it would not be able to withstand the shock caused by the battle of celestial venerables. Dijin Master's strength was amazing. This statue puppet was obviously not his match. Soon, its body was shattered by the palm print that Dijin Master sent out. Boom! 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 The remaining 3 statue puppets also moved and attacked Dijin Master. In this way, facing the joint attack of 4 celestial venerables, Dijin Master was forced to retreat. What a powerful statue puppet! Let's get out of here first! Dijin Master shouted and struck out a string of Buddhist beads. It set off a vibrating momentum and forced the 4 statue puppets to retreat. Then, a golden Buddha chi rolled out and wrapped around Gong Yu. Then, he flashed into the space array in the corner of the treasure refining palace. After a burst of Xian Guang, he was sent out of the treasure refining palace by the space array. Ka. The 4 statue puppets returned to their original positions and remained motionless. Dijin Master won't be satisfied without getting the divine artifact. He'll definitely come back. I'll just wait here and let them fight to the death. Su Feng, who was hiding in the Wooling Goblin's stomach, smiled evilly. He was not anxious at all. As Su Feng expected, Dijin Master returned to the treasure refining palace after 10 days. However, he and Gong Yu were not alone. Ji Xing Immortal Venerable, Yun Xiao, and 7 other experts from the Great Star Hall were also with him. The Great Star Hall had brought a dozen peerless experts this time, but now only 7 of them were left. It was a great loss. Dijin Master has joined forces with the Great Star Hall again. Maybe they can really get the divine artifact. This is going to be troublesome. Su Fong did not expect that the 2 sides would join forces. He could not help but feel a headache. Is that the divine artifact refined by the last palace master of the boundless secular palace? Ji Xing Immortal Venerable's eyes shone brightly. Dijin Master said, although the divine artifact is good, it requires strength to get it. Lucky Star Immortal Supremacy, according to our agreement, we will work together to obtain this divine artifact. The divine artifact will belong to the Grand Star Hall, and the Grand Star Hall will compensate me with a divine-grade Buddhist artifact and a divine-grade Buddhist cultivation technique. Ji Xing Immortal Venerable restrained the greed in his eyes and said with a smile, "Don't worry, Dijin Master. The Great Star Hall is a chamber of commerce. We do business with integrity as the foundation. We won't go back on our words." "That's the best." Dijin Master nodded. Su Fong sneered inwardly. Businessmen did business with integrity as the foundation. However, in the face of great benefits, not to mention the so-called integrity, they could even betray their own parents. Dijin Master obviously did not believe Ji Xing Immortal Venerable's nonsense. When the 4 divine puppets were eliminated and the formation around the divine artifact was broken, there would be a fierce battle between the 2 sides. Take your time. Get rid of the divine puppets and break the formation. It's best if both of you are injured. That way I can save a lot of effort. Su Fong chuckled and sat cross-legged inside the Wooling Goblin to cultivate. At the same time, he separated a young immortal and paid attention to the situation in the hall. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shattering battle was taking place in the treasure refining hall. Dijin Master and Ji Xing Immortal Venerable had already formulated a very detailed plan. The formation expert from the Grand Star Hall first set up a formation in the distance and then lured a statue puppet into the formation, temporarily trapping it in place equals N_1. Gong Yu, Yun Xiao, and the other Great Star Hall experts joined forces to deal with one of the divine puppets. They did not aim to destroy it, but to restrain it with their divine abilities and Tao artifacts. Dijin Master took out a Buddhist bead artifact. After activating it, it released a circular Buddhist light that shackled one of the divine puppets, temporarily immobilizing it. This Buddhist bead artifact was of the peak supreme grade. Not only could it be used to attack, but it could also be used to trap the enemy. Its ability was so extraordinary that even Su Fong was a little envious. After that, Dijin Master and Ji Xing Immortal Venerable joined forces and unleashed their most powerful divine abilities to attack the remaining divine puppet. Dijin Master activated the Buddha's Fury Vajra physique, making him look like a raging Vajra, majestic and awe-inspiring. On the other hand, Ji Xing Immortal Venerable activated a fist-sized bead that emitted dazzling light. It was like a star shooting out dazzling starlight that constantly corroded the body of the godly puppet. Under the joint attack of the 2 immortal venerables, the divine puppet lasted for more than 2 hours before its body finally shattered and turned into a pile of debris. On the other hand, Gong Yu and Yun Xiao's side were in a miserable state. Out of the 7 Grand Star Hall experts, 3 of them had fallen while the remaining 4 were all injured. One of them was seriously injured and had lost the ability to fight. Another divine puppet that was trapped by the Grand Star Hall's array formation expert had also broken the array formation. The Grand Star Hall expert, who had a high level of array formation, was slashed in half by the divine puppet's sword. At this time, Dijin Master and Ji Xing Immortal Venerable happened to be free. They unleashed their full strength and instantly killed the divine puppet that was shackled by the Buddhist bead artifact. Then, the 2 of them each dealt with 1 divine puppet. The following battle could be said to be tragic. After Gong Yu and Yun Xiao were injured, they withdrew from the battle. Both of them had just advanced to the Saint Immortal realm not long ago. It was obvious that their strength was extraordinary to be able to fight against the immortal venerable divine puppets. 2 of the remaining Grand Star Hall experts were killed by the divine puppets, while the rest were seriously injured. The next battle was completely between Dijin Master and Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. It lasted for half a day before they finally killed all the divine puppets. Although the 2 of them were not injured, they were both panting and seemed to have consumed a lot of energy. Both of them are obviously hiding their strength. What a cunning old fox! Su Fang sensed the aura of the 2 and sneered again. 3 days later, the array formation around the divine artifact suddenly shattered. Whoosh! The moment the array formation collapsed, Dijin Master and Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, charged toward the divine artifact at the same time. Dijin Master, how dare you go back on your words and try to snatch the divine artifact? Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, shouted coldly. Who wouldn't want such a heaven-defying divine artifact for themselves? If the Grand Star Hall really gets the divine artifact as they wish, will they compensate me as promised? Ji Xing, do you think I'm an idiot? Dijin Master laughed out loud. After forming a hand seal, he struck out a golden palm print that swiftly attacked Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. Su Fang's spirit was suddenly lifted and he was ready to act at any time. =_our download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1461. Buddha's Fury Vajra Body, Demon Rinsing Bodhi Bead. Dijin activated the Buddha's Fury Vajra Body again. This time, he didn't hold back and activated the Buddha's divine power to the extreme. The entire treasure refining hall was shrouded in his terrifying and sacred divine power. Then, he threw out the Buddha Bead Tao artifact. A wave of Buddha's light that seemed to be able to wipe out all demons and evils. The Buddha's divine power is indeed amazing. However, I am an elder of the Great Star Hall. Why would I be afraid of you? Lucky Star Protection, Killing Star Destruction. Ji Xing, Immortal Lord, didn't dare to hold back. He shouted coldly and quickly formed a seal to activate his divine power. Xian Guang shot out from the top of Ji Xing, Immortal Lord's head and condensed into a light ball that was about 10 feet in size. It emitted a peaceful aura and covered his entire body. With the protection of the heavenly Tao, Dijin's Buddha's divine power couldn't affect him. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, Ji Xing, Immortal Lord, activated the Tao artifact that was shaped like a bead. It emitted a dazzling light that condensed into a starry sword chi. It emitted a terrifying divine power that could tear the space apart and attacked Dijin. Boom! The 2 peerless immortal venerables clashed against each other in the treasure refining palace, causing a series of explosions. Ji Xing, Immortal Lord, was obviously no match for Dijin. He was suppressed by Dijin. However, it was impossible for Dijin Master to kill Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, in a short period of time. Just as the 2 immortal lords were in a stalemate, an expert of the Great Star Hall sneaked to the back and pounced on the divine artifact that was sitting cross-legged on the ground. When Gong Yu saw this, the corners of his lips curled up, revealing a cold and mocking smile. "How dare you!" Dijin shouted angrily and used all his strength to activate the demon rinsing Bodhi bead to push Ji Xing, Immortal Lord, back. Then, he turned around and attacked the expert of the Great Star Hall. However, it was too late. The expert of the Great Star Hall formed a seal and formed a Xian Guang to envelop the divine artifact. Then, he tried to grab the divine artifact. However, the divine artifact didn't move an inch on the ground. The expert of the Great Star Hall was shocked and suddenly increased his true chi to try to grab the divine artifact. Boom! All of a sudden, a powerful suction force burst out from the divine artifact, catching the Grand Star Hall expert off guard. Even if he was on guard, he couldn't escape from this terrifying force. His body lost control of his body and slammed into the divine artifact. Sizzle! Blood chi gushed out of the Grand Star Hall expert's 7 orifices and skin before being devoured by the divine weapon. The man's body quickly shriveled like a rubber ball that had been sucked dry. In less than 3 breaths, he had turned into a pile of ashes that drifted to the ground. His Taoist robe also fell to the ground. Such a terrifying scene caused Reverend Dijon, who was rushing over, to stop abruptly. His face was filled with shock. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, and Yun Xiao were also surprised and shocked. This heaven-defying artifact can actually absorb a cultivator's blood essence. Su Feng, who was hiding in the Wooling Goblin, was also shocked when he saw this scene. Glancing at the red Taoist robe in front of the divine artifact, Su Feng suddenly realized that the last palace master of the boundless secular palace had tried to fuse with the divine artifact after killing Emperor Tianbao in a sneak attack. In the end, his blood essence was sucked dry by the divine artifact and he died here in a daze. What a terrifying divine artifact! Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, and Reverend Dijon stopped fighting and looked at the divine artifact with helpless smiles. After fighting for so long, this was the result. They could only stare at the heaven-defying divine artifact but couldn't take it. What was the point of continuing to fight? Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, since the Great Star Hall is determined to get the divine artifact, I'll give you face and let you take the divine artifact first. Reverend Truth had a humble and courteous look on his face. Just like the monk Shangda, this Buddhist cultivator also had a very thick skin. I'm going to give it a try. Otherwise, how can I be satisfied? Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, chuckled and didn't hold back. When he was 10 feet away from the divine artifact, Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, activated his divine ability and used Ji Xing to protect himself. Then, he carefully shot out a ray of starlight to envelop the divine artifact. Rise for me! Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, shouted coldly, and the Xian Guang suddenly shrank. However, what happened next was exactly the same as what happened to the Great Star Hall's expert. Not only did the divine artifact not move, but it also burst out with a force of attraction and attracted Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, was able to control his momentum at first, but after a while, his momentum shattered layer by layer. Puff, seeing that he was about to end up like the Great Star Hall expert, Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The blood essence was absorbed by the divine artifact, and the force of attraction weakened a little. In the next moment, the Tao artifact divine light that enveloped Ji Xing the Immortal Venerable exploded with a rumble, shaking Ji Xing the Immortal Venerable away. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's aura suddenly became sluggish. Even the bead had some cracks on it. Master Dijon, the Great Star Hall will give up on this heaven-defying divine artifact. It's yours now. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, regained his smile. If that's the case, then I'll give it a try. Dijon stepped forward with a solemn look on his face. Go, demon rinsing Bodhi bead. Master Dijon directly shot out the Buddhist bead, which emitted a ray of golden light and Buddhist chi that condensed into a light shield that enveloped the divine artifact. Withdraw. Master Dijon formed a seal to activate the Buddhist artifact. The golden light and Buddhist chi shrank and pulled the divine artifact. Master Dijon's face was filled with ecstasy. However, in the next second, a mysterious and incomparably powerful aura burst out from the top of the divine artifact. The light shield formed by the golden light and Buddhist chi instantly shattered. Not only that, but the aura of the divine artifact also hit the demon-rinsing Bodhi bead. With a cracking sound, the Buddhist bead broke into 2 halves and fell to the ground, completely destroyed. Master Dijon's primordial spirit was also impacted by the aura. His body trembled and his face turned paler than a sheet of paper. For a moment, he could barely stand. The 2 peerless Immortal Venerables failed one after another. Not only did they suffer serious injuries, but they also lost their Tao artifact. Both of them were furious and heartbroken. However, they still refused to give up. They stayed in the hall and kept trying all kinds of method. Naturally, they returned empty-handed. About a month later. The Great Star Hall has no fate with the divine artifact. Let's go. Ji Xing decisively took Yun Xiao and the injured experts of the Great Star Hall and left the treasure refining hall through a spatial array. How could Ji Xing, immortal venerable, give up so easily? He obviously wants to go back to the Great Star Hall to find help. Humph, there are many experts in the Great Star Hall. It's not like I don't have any friends. As long as I can get the divine artifact, I'll just give them some benefit. Master Dezhen also decided to leave the treasure refining hall immediately. Gong Yu suddenly said, "Why don't I stay here and wait for you, senior? It's better to prevent the Great Star Hall from returning." Master Dezhen's deep eyes flashed with a sharp light. Then, he smiled faintly and said, "That's good. You wait here for my return." Whoosh! Master Dezhen passed through the array and left. Gong Yu suddenly formed a series of hand seals and sent out Xian Guang to seal the spatial array in the corner of the hall. Since it's called a heaven-defying divine artifact, how can it be taken by ordinary means? How can the heaven-defying treasure of the boundless secular palace fall into the hands of others? The divine artifact will be mine. No one can take it away from me. Ha ha! Gong Yu laughed loudly. His complacent laughter echoed in the hall. Su Fang raised his eyebrows and said to himself, "This Gong Yu is not simple. He must have hidden many secrets of the boundless secular palace. Maybe he can take away the divine artifact." Gong Yu came to the red robe in front of the divine artifact and knelt on the ground. Ancestor of the boundless secular palace, Junior Gong Yu greets the ancestor. When you merged with the divine artifact, you suffered a backlash and your body was destroyed. The young immortal took the opportunity to escape with his supreme magic. After leaving the boundless secular palace, he was reborn and rebuilt the divine palace family, so that the bloodline of the boundless secular palace could continue. Later, you used all kinds of methods to try to take the divine artifact, but failed. It was not until you were about to die that you came up with a way to merge with the divine artifact. This secret was passed down from generation to generation by the palace master of the divine palace family. Today, everything is finally ready. I have come to collect the heaven-defying divine artifact. Please protect me, ancestor. Su Fang, who was inside the wooling goblin, heard Gong Yu's muttering. He could not help but be shocked. He did not expect such a secret to be hidden. Gong Yu stood up and showed a domineering aura. When I collect the divine artifact and merge with it, I will rebuild the boundless secular palace. I will walk out of this immortal realm and dominate the macro world sooner or later. At that time, not only Master Dezhen, but also the Tianming Haotsong sect and the Hongxing Hall Chamber of Commerce will be trampled under my feet. At this moment, Gong Yu's ambition and domineering aura shocked Su Fang. Gong Yu walked to the back of the divine artifact and smiled proudly. When the divine artifact was refined, the ancestor of the boundless secular palace secretly integrated a large amount of blood essence into it. If you want to collect the divine artifact, you must have the original aura of the boundless secular palace and the power of a deity. Only then can you collect and merge with it. Master Dezhen and Venerable Lucky Star, these two idiots, with the power of your macro world, you want to merge with the heaven-defying divine artifact? Gong Yu formed an astonishing hand seal, and a layer of divine radiance quickly appeared on his right arm, filled with the mysterious power of the greater world. It was as if this arm no longer belonged to him, but was instead the hand of a deity that came from the myriad worlds. After countless generations of hard work, the Shengong family collected the divine artifacts of the macro world and finally refined this divine arm with the power of a deity. It merged with my body, so I have the ability to merge with and control the heaven-defying divine artifact. After spending so much effort, who else but me can be the master of the divine artifact? Gong Yu burst into laughter again. Puff! A stream of blood essence spurted out from Gong Yu's mouth and fell on the divine artifact. It was quickly absorbed by the divine artifact. Then, Gong Yu's right arm suddenly burst with a sacred and mysterious divine brilliance. His right palm pressed on the top of the divine artifact's head. Crack, crack, crack. Inside the divine artifact's body, there was the sound of bones and flesh expanding and blood rushing. After a dozen breaths, an incomparably majestic aura of life burst out from the divine artifact. Oh no, the divine artifact is about to be awakened by Gong Yu. Su Fang could no longer hold back. She let the Wuling goblin slide down from the stone pillar to the ground. After transforming into a demon body, she spat out Su Fang from her mouth. Su Fang! Gong Yu was alarmed by the movement behind him. When he saw that it was Su Fang, he was shocked and surprised. Then, Gong Yu laughed wildly. You've come at the right time. Not only will this heaven-defying divine artifact belong to me, Gong Yu, but your Taoist artifacts and everything else will also belong to me. Download address. Mobile reading. Bibliographic review. Chapter 1462. Divine power, I need divine power. A muffled voice came out of the human-shaped divine artifact's mouth, as if it had not woken up yet. Boom. Boom. The divine light on Gong Yu's right palm suddenly became much brighter as he poured all the divine power in his right arm into the divine artifact. An unparalleled divine power burst out from the divine artifact. The treasure refining hall shook violently. Cracks appeared all over the hall, and the surrounding space array also shattered layer by layer. Under this divine power, Su Fang could not get close. He was forced to retreat and almost vomited blood. The next moment, the human-shaped divine artifact's eyes suddenly opened, shooting out a beam of divine light. Chi, chi, chi. Wherever the divine artifact's light reached, the space collapsed layer by layer. The method my ancestor told me works. Gong Yu was overjoyed to see the divine artifact in his hand. Su Fang, I admit that you are a peerless genius, but so what? No matter how heaven-defying your talent is, you are just a lowly cultivator from a small world. I, Gong Yu, am a descendant of the boundless secular palace. My status is noble. You are no match for me. Now I will give you a chance. Submit to me and become my slave. When I reach the peak of the macro world, you will also receive supreme glory. Otherwise, not only will I take your Tao artifact, but I will also strip your memories. All your secrets will be mine. Gong Yu was so proud that he laughed loudly again. He actually wanted to make Su Fang submit to him. Even if you get the divine artifact, with your strength, can you control it? Su Fang sneered. The Origin sacred mirror quietly appeared in his right palm. At this point, he could only use the mirror to see if he could suppress the divine artifact. No matter how heaven-defying Emperor Tianbao's refining skills were, and no matter how powerful his divine artifact was, it could not be better than the mirror. However, Su Fang was worried that the power he could use the Origin sacred mirror was limited. Could he keep the divine artifact in the mirror's space? Boom! A powerful aura burst out from the body of the divine artifact. It was as if a peerless monster had awakened. The divine might that it released formed an astonishing shackle. Su Fang almost stopped breathing and found it difficult to even move a finger. The artifact's spirit has been awakened. The divine artifact is finally born. Gong Yu's eyes flickered with a hearty light. He was so excited that his whole body started to tremble. Chi. A mysterious purple gas emanated from the divine artifact and condensed into a purple cloud above its head. This is the great pregnant violet energy produced by the impending birth of a divine item. Su Fang's eyes suddenly burned with excitement, and he withdrew the Origin sacred mirror in his hand. Great pregnant purple chi. Before a magic treasure was successfully refined, there was a kind of omen that appeared. It was an extremely mysterious power between heaven and earth. The great pregnant purple qi that Su Fang absorbed in the past was like wisps of smoke, invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, this heaven-defying divine artifact was infused with divine force by Gong Yu, causing the artifact's spirit to awaken. This also meant that the divine artifact had matured, giving birth to great fertility violet energy. It was actually this shocking. Not only the quantity, but the quality was even more shocking. Before the birth of a magic treasure in a macro world, it was impossible to produce such great pregnant purple qi. After absorbing this great pregnant purple qi, my purple qi dharma spirit will not only recover, but also become flawless. Even if I can't get the divine artifact, I've achieved my goal of coming to the boundless secular palace. Moreover, I've unexpectedly obtained the coiled dragonwood. Su Fang immediately urged the purple qi dharma spirit. Sensing the shocking great pregnant purple qi, the purple qi dharma spirit became very active. First, it wriggled in his body, then it started to tremble violently. Hiss! The great pregnant purple qi above the divine artifact was peeled off bit by bit and rushed toward Su Fang, who was more than 300 feet away. It then entered his body and was wantonly devoured by the purple qi dharma spirit. The purple qi dharma spirit roared madly in his body, as if it had devoured a great tonic. Due to devouring the power of the 9 serenities demonic god nail, the purple qi dharma spirit became dispirited and listless. Many parts that merged with his flesh and meridians even withered. After devouring the great pregnant purple qi, the withered parts became active again and crazily extended to every corner of his body, further integrating with his flesh. What is he trying to do? Gong Yu, who originally thought that victory was in his grasp, was surprised to see Su Fang devouring the purple qi dharma spirit. Is he trying to seize the divine artifact? Thinking of Su Fang's various incredible divine powers, Gong Yu couldn't help but feel nervous. Looking at the divine artifact again, it was obvious that it would be difficult to successfully produce it in a short time. The most important thing was that it lacked divine power. Gritting his teeth, Gong Yu took out a divine essence pill and swallowed it. The divine palace family had a very deep heritage, so naturally, there were many divine essence pills passed down from generation to generation. With Gong Yu's current cultivation realm, it was originally impossible for him to refine the medicinal power of the divine essence pill in a short time. However, the divine palace's cultivation techniques were inherited from the boundless secular palace, which had some connections with the heavens and realms, and cultivated supreme cultivation techniques. Under the state of Gong Yu's full power, he quickly refined the divine essence pill and turned it into traces of divine power, which continuously replenished his divine arm. The aura of the artifact's explosion suddenly became a bit stronger equals N_R. Gong Yu couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, in the next moment, his eyes revealed a look of horror. Why was this? It turned out that the divine essence pill was just the most common pill in the heavens and realms. The divine power contained in a divine essence pill was very limited, so it was quickly devoured by the divine artifact. In desperation, Gong Yu could only grit his teeth and continue to devour the divine essence pill to awaken the artifact's spirit of the divine artifact completely. In this way, Gong Yu became a crucible transformation cultivator who refined the divine essence pill and constantly replenished the divine power consumed by the divine artifact. Gong Yu's cultivation was only at the first path of Saint Immortal Realm. No matter how magical the divine palace's cultivation technique was, such a huge burden was far beyond the range of what he could bear. He was in an extremely dangerous state. However, he continued to devour the divine essence pill as if he had gone mad. He would not stop until he obtained the divine artifact. In stark contrast to Gong Yu, Su Fang was in an extremely strange state. After devouring all the great pregnant purple gas, the purple gas Dharma spirit fell silent for a moment. Then, it suddenly exploded in his body. Purple gas Dharma spirits were running in every corner of his body. The purple gas Dharma spirit underwent another great transformation and merged perfectly with his physical body. It felt like blood was dissolved in water. A perfect purple gas Dharma spirit. Su Fang's eyes flickered. What did it mean to have a perfect purple gas Dharma spirit? At this moment, Su Fang felt that the speed of his fusion with the underworld reincarnation sword, Xianming Thunder Archive, and other Dao artifacts had increased imperceptibly and reached a new height. With a perfect purple gas Dharma spirit, activating any magic treasure, including the Xianming Thunder Archive, would not consume too much genuine qi or life aura. With the help of the purple gas Dharma spirit's ability to control magic treasures, Su Fang, with his cultivation base at the fourth path of Saint Immortal Realm, could not only fully activate the power of a peak Supreme Dao artifact, but also the Underworld Reincarnation Sword and the Immortal Slaying Bow, which were at the same level as the 10 Great Dao artifacts. As for the Xianming Thunder Archive, a Supreme Dao artifact that was infinitely close to a divine artifact, Su Fang was confident that if he fully activated it, he could also fully activate its power. However, he could only fully activate it once. Activating it again would consume a great deal of genuine qi. However, even activating it once was quite an impressive feat. It should be known that the Emperor of Netherworld's strength back then could only reach this level if he fully exerted his strength. Su Fang wasn't sure how much of the primeval sacred mirror's power he could activate. This supreme divine tool was too overbearing. Even if the purple cloud law spirit became perfect, Su Fang wasn't sure how much of its power he could activate. Law, who was in the blood prison, also sighed. Amazing, Su Fang, you are really amazing. With the purple gas Dharma spirit, you are finally qualified to step onto the stage of the top experts of the macro world and no longer limited to this immortal domain. Law, don't worry, after I settle the matters of this immortal domain, I will go to the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect and retrieve the blood jade for you. It's good that you have this intention. For the time being, it's better not to encounter the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect. It's not just one or two immortal venerables, but the most powerful force of the macro world. Not only does the sect have a lot of immortal venerables, but it also has a demigod expert with 1 foot in the true god realm. Even if you have a perfect purple gas Dharma spirit and a supreme divine artifact like the Origin Sacred Mirror, it will be difficult for you to contend with the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect. Difficult to contend with the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect? Law, you've probably forgotten that the purple gas Dharma spirit not only gives me the powerful ability to control magic treasures and bestows me with supreme fortune, but it can also devour the artifact spirits of magic treasures. When combined with the life shrinking technique, it can even devour the fortune of a sect. If I devour the fortune of the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect and cause its fortune to decline, will I have the strength to contend with them? Devour the fortune of the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect. Luo was also shocked by Su Fang's boldness and ambition and took a breath of cold air. An empire or a sect maintained its glory and strength, and its foundation was fortune. Without fortune, no matter how powerful an empire was, it would collapse overnight. By the same logic, no matter how powerful a sect was, if it lost its fortune, it would eventually walk the path of destruction. Su Fang continued, It's not just the Heaven's Mandate Haotsong sect. When my cultivation reaches the immortal venerable level, or even higher, I will devour the fortune of the entire demon race and completely eradicate the immortal Tao. This time, Law was completely shocked. Su Fang sensed the origin spirit of the purple gas Dharma spirit. It was now in a state of slow awakening. It should not take long for it to completely awaken. With the help of the origin spirit, the ability of the purple gas Dharma spirit to Su Fang would increase by a lot. Let's solve the matter of the divine artifact first. Su Fang looked at Gongyu. Emperor Tianbao had been unable to complete 2 major regrets when he was alive. At this time, the perfect purple gas Dharma spirit had been completed by Su Fang. As for this divine artifact, it was another regrettable matter. Even if Su Fang could not get the human-shaped divine artifact himself, it must not fall into the hands of Gong Yu. He was the descendant of the murderer of Emperor Tianbao. If the divine artifact was obtained by him, Emperor Tianbao would not be able to die in peace. Just as he was about to make a move, Gong Yu's body shook. His whole person seemed to be squeezed dry, and his aura suddenly withered to the extreme. It turned out that he had been constantly devouring and refining the divine essence pill, and had long exceeded the limit of what he could bear. At this time, he was already at the end of his rope. Divine power. I need divine power. The voice of the divine artifact was full of strong desire. Without the supply of divine power, the divine artifact did not stop. Instead, it wantonly devoured the power and life aura of Gong Yu's right arm. Puff! In an instant, Gong Yu's right arm was like a withered tree, shrinking rapidly, and finally breaking apart. The divine artifact still refused to give up and continued to devour Gong Yu's life aura. No. I am your master. How can you devour your master? Stop, quickly stop. Gong Yu was scared out of his wits and shouted in despair. The divine artifact seemed to understand his words and stopped devouring. It burst out a burst of divine power and sent Gong Yu flying. You are not qualified to be my master, the human-shaped divine artifact said slowly, and then looked at Su Fang. =R download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1463. The Divine Artifact Transaction, Su Fang. Let's see how you escape this calamity. Even if you have heaven-defying divine abilities, can you really fight against a heaven-defying divine artifact? When Gong Yu saw the human-shaped divine artifact turn its attention to Su Fang, he couldn't help but laugh savagely. The human-shaped divine artifact slowly rose from the ground, like a god descending upon a greater world. It wasn't very tall, but it seemed capable of piercing through the heavens. In that moment, Su Fang felt a deadly sense of danger. Law quickly reminded him. This heaven-defying divine artifact hasn't fully awakened, and in a greater world, its power is limited. It's not something that should appear in a greater world, so it can't unleash its full power. Other divine abilities won't be of much use to it, but the power of the world of yin and yang, and the violet energy magical spirit. The power of the world of yin and yang, and the violet energy magical spirit. Su Fang stared blankly for a moment, then understood. What was divine power? Divine power was a kind of great Tao power that could transform an immortal into a god after reaching a certain level of comprehension and control. Su Fang's heaven and earth Tao palace was something that only the gods of the myriad worlds could possess. Furthermore, as the world sprouted, his own world had a certain embryonic form, and the world power it released was no longer the power of a greater world, but the power of a god. Su Fang's heaven and earth Tao palace was the most mysterious of the myriad great Taos. Therefore, the power of his world of yin and yang was also an extraordinary and special power. However, it was equivalent to a true god, and Su Fang's divine power was still very weak. Just like how the true energy of a lesser world couldn't contend with the power of an immortal from a greater world, the power of an immortal from a greater world couldn't contend with the power of a god. Only a similar level of power was qualified to contend with it. The violet energy magical spirit could control magical treasures and even devour their artifact spirit. Even if it couldn't control or devour the human-shaped divine artifact, it would have a powerful suppressive effect. Although the human-shaped divine artifact was similar to a god, it was still a divine artifact refined by Emperor Celestial. For Su Fang, who had a perfect violet energy magical spirit, it was a fatal weakness. In the great world, how many people are qualified to fight against a deity? There was no trace of fear on Su Fang's face. Instead, there was a strong will to fight. Gong Yu sneered disdainfully. In his opinion, Su Fang was simply overestimating himself by trying to fight against a godlike artifact. Qi. Looking at Su Fang, the eyes of the divine artifact once again emitted a terrifying light that could shatter the void. You want to suppress my Su Fang with just your gaze? Su Fang shouted coldly and activated the world seed. The power of the yin-yang world burst out and condensed into a powerful defensive aura around him. At the same time, he pushed the purple Qi Dharma spirit to the extreme. Mysterious purple Qi circled around his body, releasing a terrifying divine might that could make any Dharma treasure submit to it. Boom! Boom! Su Fang's aura shattered layer by layer, but it did not completely collapse. Instead, the light of the divine artifact's pupil was worn away. The divine might of the purple Qi Dharma spirit also made the human-shaped divine artifact tremble. It was on the verge of collapse. Deity, you have the power of a deity. What is that Dharma treasure in your body? It is so familiar. It seems to be of the same origin as me. Its aura can affect me involuntarily. I even feel like I am being suppressed and swallowed by it, stimulated by the divine might of the purple Qi Dharma spirit. The divine artifact's consciousness became clearer. Although its voice was still intermittent, it could clearly express its meaning. It was full of fear and panic. Gong Yu, who was standing at the side, was shocked. Su Fang shouted at the human-shaped divine artifact, "Submit to me. I will help you completely awaken and become a true divine artifact." Submit to you? In this world, no human is qualified to be my master. Although you have the power of a deity and that Dharma treasure can suppress me, you are not qualified to make me submit to you. In the cold voice of the human-shaped divine artifact, there was a supreme arrogance. Moreover, I am not a divine artifact. I am a deity. After swallowing you, my consciousness and physical abilities will be completely awakened. I will become a true deity and will no longer be a lifeless Dharma treasure. The human-shaped divine artifact suddenly took a step forward. In a flash, it arrived in front of Su Fang and directly punched out. Because it was too fast, it caused ripples in the space. It was even difficult for people to catch sight of its figure. So fast. Fortunately, Su Fang's physical body had reached the great perfection realm. It gave him a reaction speed that was far beyond that of ordinary cultivators. The ability of the dragon subduing true body was immediately activated. Before the human-shaped divine artifact could kill him, he quickly turned into a dragon man. In fact, the power of his giant diamond body was even stronger than the dragon's subduing true body. The reason why he did not use it now was that on one hand, there was not enough time. On the other hand, using the giant diamond body would consume a large amount of yang qi. The Origin Sacred Mirror was his greatest trump card. Activating the mirror required yang qi. Therefore, Su Fang had to maintain his yang qi at the peak state. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to contend against this terrifying divine artifact. Boom! After an earth-shattering collision, Su Fang's fist and right arm were shattered by a huge and powerful force. His body was violently sent flying hundreds of feet away. He crashed into a stone pillar that supported the treasure refining hall. The hall shook violently, almost collapsing, and the stone pillars were also forcefully broken. Countless bones in Su Fang's body were shattered. His meridians and internal organs were also severely injured. You don't know the meaning of death. Gong Yu was very pleased. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, the sound of blood flowing within Su Fang's body rang out, and then he leaped up from the ground and stood there proudly. Exuberant vitality surged all over his body, and he had a domineering aura that stood proudly in the heavens and the earth. Besides his slightly pale face, he didn't look like he was heavily injured at all. Gong Yu's eyes were filled with disbelief. Even the emotionless human-shaped divine artifact's eyes were shining with a shocking light. Since you are not willing to submit to me and want to devour me, I cannot let you live. Su Fong flipped his right hand and the Origin's sacred mirror appeared in his hand. He raised the mirror and pointed it at the divine artifact. Sensing the aura of the mirror, the human-shaped divine artifact revealed the same shocked and terrified expression as a human. Its voice also trembled. Impossible. In this world, how can there be a divine artifact stronger than me? Divine artifact? Su Fong actually has a divine artifact. It's of a higher level than the human-shaped divine artifact. Gong Yu was completely dumbfounded. The human-shaped divine artifact said coldly, "You can't even contend against me. How can you activate a divine artifact that is stronger than me?" Before it even finished speaking, Su Fong sent a ray of 9 suns power into the mirror. In an instant, a red light shot out from the mirror and landed on the human-shaped divine artifact. Then, it quickly burned into 9 yang true fire. The purple Qi law spirit became perfect. Su Fong's power of activating the divine artifact increased by a lot. Moreover, it became much easier for him to use it. You can actually activate a divine artifact. The human-shaped divine artifact cried out in pain under the divine power of the mirror. It constantly struggled and resisted. However, no matter how heaven-defying it was, how could it resist the divine power of the Origin's sacred mirror? Under the refining power of the 9 yang true fire, mysterious marks appeared on its body. They were not immortal marks, but divine marks of the transcending immortal mark. Among those divine marks, the qi and blood that Gong Yu had fused with were immediately incinerated by the 9 yang true fire. Puff! Feeling that the connection with the human-shaped divine artifact had been severed, Gong Yu's primordial spirit consciousness was also damaged. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His originally weak aura fell again, and he was on the verge of death. Su Fong shouted coldly, "You will submit voluntarily, or be refined by my supreme divine artifact. You decide for yourself." "I will not submit, and if I submit to you, you will be punished by the heavens. Even if you have this mirror divine artifact, you will not be able to escape the punishment of the will of the heavens." The human-shaped divine artifact's words shocked Su Fong. Law said from the blood jade, "Su Fong, the divine artifact is right. You have to think carefully." This divine artifact had not yet been born, but it had already attracted the attention of the will of the heavens. It wanted to send down heavenly punishment. If he really fused with the divine artifact, it would definitely attract heavenly punishment. At that time, even if he had the supreme providence brought by the purple Qi law spirit, the purple Qi law spirit had not reached the point where heavenly punishment could not be applied. It would be difficult for the Origin's sacred mirror to resist the power of heavenly punishment. As long as he thought of the scene described by the Yellow Spring Great Emperor, Su Fong shuddered. How can I be willing to give up just like that? Of course, Su Fong was unwilling. Who would be willing to give up such a heaven-defying divine artifact? "I can make a deal with you." Under the burning divine power of the mirror, the human-shaped divine artifact's voice quickly became much weaker. "You are just a newly born divine artifact. What do you have to make a deal with me?" Su Fong could not help but find it a little funny. Although the divine artifact's consciousness had just awakened, its spiritual intelligence was not low. "I need your divine power and the blood essence in your body that is full of vitality. Only then can my consciousness and physical ability be completely awakened. The point is, what can I get in return? If I fuse with your blood essence, when you become a true divine being, you can become my master. It will be difficult for me to resist your control. Didn't you just say that after fusing with you, you will bring me heavenly punishment? Furthermore, as soon as you leave this place and come into contact with nature, you will be sensed by the will of the heavenly Tao. Are you saying that you can resist the heavenly punishment?" The human-shaped divine artifact said, "I was refined by a human and went against the heavenly Tao's reincarnation. The heavenly Tao will destroy me and the person who refined me before I am born. Now that I have been born, it means that my existence is reasonable. The will of the heavenly Tao will also allow my existence, and will not send down heavenly punishment. The principle was very simple. For example, cultivator's cultivation was originally an action that went against the will of the heavenly Tao. Because of that, heavenly punishment would be sent down. However, once a cultivator transcended the heavenly punishment, it meant that they had obtained the acknowledgement of the will of the heavenly Tao. However, I can vaguely sense that this world cannot accommodate me. Once my consciousness and abilities are completely awakened, I will immediately leave this world and go to a higher level world. Thus, after you become my master, you will only need to stay here for a period of time and avoid being sensed by the will of the heavenly Tao. Once I leave this world and am no longer by your side, the will of the heavenly Tao will not notice you. Once you become a divine being, you will be able to truly control me, and the will of the heavenly Tao will not send down heavenly punishment. Su Fang laughed involuntarily. I have to give up my precious strength and vitality, but you give me this empty promise. Even if you go to the myriad heavens, do you think I will go there to find you? In a great world, how many people can surpass the peak and walk out of the world's end? Your strength is very weak, but you possess the power that only a divine being can possess. Thus, I can conclude that the cultivation technique you cultivate has a very high possibility of allowing you to become a divine being. Furthermore, I also have a way to increase your chances of becoming a god. =R =R download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1464. You're saying, the method Emperor Tianbao used to refine you is his great Tao of refining? Su Fang's eyes suddenly shone with a terrifying light. His heart beat violently. So the human who refined me is called Emperor Tianbao. I'll remember this name. The human-shaped divine artifact said faintly. The great Tao of craftsmanship you are talking about is the great Tao of craftsmanship that Emperor Tianbao entered the great Tao of craftsmanship. He refined and cultivated divine artifacts like humans. Although I don't know, I am the great Tao of craftsmanship. The great Tao is me. The process of my birth is also the process of great Tao of craftsmanship. I'll tell you everything about me. You can completely comprehend Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining from me. Since I can be refined from lifeless materials into a divine being, you can also cultivate the great Tao of refining and become a divine being. The human-shaped divine artifact's cold and emotionless voice was full of temptation to Su Fang. He couldn't help but be tempted. Which immortal didn't want to reach the peak of the macro world, walk out of the macro world and go to the legendary myriad worlds? Su Fang cultivated the 9 suns' 9 transformations and cultivated the heaven and earth Tao Palace. He had the qualifications to become a divine being. Moreover, the possibility of that was very high. However, the path of cultivation was extremely difficult. No one could be 100% sure. Even if there was a slim chance, cultivators would use all their strength to fight for it. They would even pay the price with their lives. Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining was to cultivate his body as a Tao artifact. He cultivated himself into a divine artifact. The great Tao of refining that Emperor Tianbao comprehended was definitely inferior to the 9 suns' 9 transformations that could cultivate the yin-yang Tao wheel. After all, Emperor Tianbao was a cultivator from the macro world. Moreover, his great Tao of refining was not perfect. He still needed countless generations and countless peerless experts to perfect it. However, the great Tao of refining was very high. It was far superior to any cultivation technique in the macro world. It would be of great help to Su Fang in cultivating the 9 suns' 9 transformations and cultivating his own world. Even if he could comprehend some useful things from it, it would help Su Fang avoid many detours on the path to the peak of the great Tao. and Su Fang only had to pay a part of his blood essence and the power of the yin-yang world. This deal was not a loss at all. As for ascending to the 10,000 realms and truly controlling a human-shaped divine artifact, Su Fang did not take it seriously. After weighing the pros and cons, Su Fang put away the primordial mirror and said decisively, "I agree to your conditions." "That would be great." After being burned by the mirror's divine power, the human-shaped divine artifact's body was covered in traces of melting, but he seemed to be fine. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes. Su Fang activated the world seed and unleashed the power of the world of yin and yang to envelop the human-shaped divine artifact. At the same time, he also extracted a part of his blood essence and turned it into a bloody light, continuously injecting it into the human-shaped divine artifact's body. In an instant, the human-shaped divine artifact's life force was more than 10 times more exuberant than before. The flesh, blood, and bones that were refined from various materials became incomparably lively. Divine power also quickly flowed through the meridians that were formed from various imprints. At the same time, Su Fang's blood essence also fused into the divine artifact, allowing him to have a certain degree of flesh and blood connection with the divine artifact. "Your blood essence and divine power are very different. It makes me feel very comfortable. My consciousness will soon be completely awakened, and the various abilities hidden in my body will soon be stimulated." After obtaining the majestic power of the world of yin and yang and the power of Su Fang's blood essence, the divine artifact's consciousness gradually awakened completely. Its body was like a silent world, and it began to circulate endlessly. Su Fang also consumed a lot of his life force and the power of the yin-yang world for this. The amount of life force and divine power needed for the human-shaped divine artifact to completely awaken was too terrifying. If it were not for Su Fang's perfect physical body, Black Lotus true body, dragon-subduing true body, and other abilities, as well as the yang qi in his body that gave him an astonishing amount of life force, he would have been sucked dry by the human-shaped divine artifact in a short while. When Gong Yu saw this scene, his confidence was once again dealt a heavy blow. He actually wanted to use the medicinal power of the divine essence pill to awaken the divine artifact. Obviously, he was overestimating himself. He even had a thought in his mind that compared to Su Fang, he was simply a joke. Su Fang's power of the yin-yang world was almost exhausted, and his life force was about to reach the limit that he could bear. At this time, the human-shaped divine artifact suddenly stopped swallowing. After a moment of silence in its body, an astonishing aura burst out and soared into the sky. Under this terrifying aura, the enchantment on the top of the treasure refining hall shattered, and a large hole appeared on the top, revealing the void outside. With the help of Su Fang's powerful power of the yin-yang world and life force, this heaven-defying divine artifact was finally completely awakened. At this time, the human-shaped divine artifact had an aura of nothingness. It looked like an ordinary person, but Su Fang's perfect physical body could sense that its body contained a vast amount of power. Once it burst out, it could even kill peerless immortal venerables like Master Dijin and immortal venerable Ji Xing. "Now, it's time for me to fulfill my promise," the human-shaped divine artifact said. The humanoid divine artifact said. Although its voice was still stiff and cold, it was no longer as unclear as before. Su Fang peeled off a strand of yang immortal and entered the divine artifact's divine aperture. The human-shaped divine artifact opened its divine aperture and consciousness, condensing its memories into mental images and allowing Su Fang to decipher all of them. This divine artifact had just been born, but it had formed an original spirit long ago, but it had been in a state of hibernation. The whole process of Emperor Tianbao refining the divine artifact, including how the master of the boundless secular palace killed Emperor Tianbao and tried to fuse with the divine artifact, could be seen in the divine artifact's memories. The great way of refining. After filtering and organizing the divine artifact's memories, Su Fang finally had a clear understanding of Emperor Tianbao's great way of refining. He couldn't help but admire Emperor Tianbao very much, even more than Misty's spiritual master who created the ethereal enlightenment. A refiner from a macro world had created a great way. Such a peerless figure had never existed before, and he believed that there would never be another one in the future. Just as Luo said, if Emperor Tianbao could enter the myriad worlds and have enough time to cultivate and correct the great way of refining, he would definitely be able to reach the peak of the myriad world. Unfortunately, Emperor Tianbao had created the great way of refining, but he didn't have the lifespan to cultivate it himself. He could only show his peerless talent by refining this divine artifact. It was obviously impossible to comprehend the great way of refining with just the divine artifact's memories. Su Fang peeled off the young immortal and entered the divine artifact's inner world. What a great Emperor Tianbao! He's simply extraordinary. Su Fang didn't expect to see layers of complex divine formations and divine patterns when he entered the divine artifact's inner world. He was so shocked that he couldn't come back to his senses. The divine artifact gave Su Fang the feeling that it was a big world, and it was a world with its own world equals n_r. A large number of formations, divine formations, handprints, divine patterns, and immortal patterns intertwined to form a vast world. With Su Fang's current cultivation level, even with the purple Qi Dharma spirit, it would take at least 100,000 years to master all of it. Moreover, he couldn't comprehend some of the divine formations and divine patterns that contained the power of arcane. Su Fang could only rely on the powerful and sturdy young immortal and the perception of a perfected great perfection to forcibly memorize such a vast world. Su Fang was immersed in the divine artifact's inner world, forgetting everything in the outside world. He didn't even pay attention to the consumed life force, the power of the yin-yang world, the half-dead Gong Yu in the main hall, or Master Dijin and the experts of Grand Star Hall who could return at any time. About 10 years passed like this. On this day, Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with incomparable exhaustion, but they flickered with a light that was filled with wisdom. After 10 years of hard work, Su Fang finally managed to forcibly memorize everything within the God artifact. However, if he wanted to completely comprehend it and figure out a complete way of refining, he would need to cultivate step by step like he did with other cultivation method. Once he mastered the great way of refining weapons of Emperor Tianbao, Su Fang would benefit tremendously. First, Su Fang's refining skills would make a leap. Coupled with the ability of the purple Qi Dharma spirit, it wouldn't take long for him to stand at the peak of the macro world. The biggest benefit was that cultivating the great way of refining weapons would be of unimaginable help to Su Fang's cultivation of the 9 changes of the 9 suns, his comprehension of the heavenly way and natural law and his own world. Although Su Fang didn't obtain any divine artifacts, he did obtain a profound cultivation method of the Great Path. Coupled with the fact that his purple Qi Dharma spirit had become perfect, and he also obtained the coiled dragon wood, this trip to the boundless secular palace could be said to have gained a lot, far more than any of his previous adventures. The human-shaped divine artifact suddenly said, "Su Fang, I've completely awakened now, and you've got what you want. I should also leave here and go to a higher world. I hope we can meet again in the future. If you can surpass me at that time, I will truly recognize you as my master and obey your orders." Su Fang nodded and said confidently, "I believe that day will come. I'm looking forward to that day. What's your name?" At this time, Su Fang no longer regarded it as a magic weapon, but as a deity. "I'm a unique treasure of heaven and earth. The human who refined me is called Emperor Tianbao. My name is Tianbao." The eyes of the human-shaped divine artifact flashed with hail and hearty light. Tianbao. In the 3 realms, a unique treasure, no, a unique deity, Tianbao. Boom. Boom. boom, boom. Just as Tianbao was about to leave the boundless secular palace, an earth-shattering noise came from outside the palace, causing the whole palace to shake violently. The immortal realm where the boundless secular palace was located was on the verge of collapse as the barriers and seals were broken one after another. The Grand Star Hall came so quickly. Lucky Star Immortal Venerable and Yunxiao brought so many Immortal Venerables with them, including a peerless Immortal Venerable on par with Immortal Frozen Dream. Su Fang used his great perfection ability and combined it with the world origin of the boundless secular world palace. He could clearly see what was happening outside, and his expression changed instantly. == Our download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1465. This time, Ji Xing Immortal Venerable returned with 3 Immortal Venerables. The leader was a bald old man with a hooked nose and sharp eyes, just like a goshawk. Su Fang could tell from his aura that this old man's cultivation was on par with Frozen Dream. Such a peerless figure was at least a Grand Elder in Grand Star Hall. The other 2 Immortal Venerables were at the same level as Ji Xing Immortal Venerable. In the macro world, Immortal Venerables were the supreme beings among immortals. They stood at the pinnacle of the macro world. The fact that the Great Star Hall had sent out 4 of them at once was a testament to how powerful they were. Moreover, Ji Xing Immortal Venerable had brought more than 100 experts with him. 20 of them were in the Saint Immortal realm. With so many experts, they would be a powerful force in any immortal realm, let alone in the desolate immortal realms at the edge of the macro world. Obviously, they were determined to get the divine artifact. When Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and Yun Xiao entered the boundless secular palace, Su Fang had broken the seals and restrictions along the way, allowing them to enter the artifact refining hall. This time, without Su Fang leading the way, the Grand Star Hall party forced their way through with overbearing and powerful divine abilities. They didn't care about the collapse of the immortal realm where the boundless secular palace was located. Clearly, they wanted to get to the artifact refining hall as soon as possible. Boom, boom, boom. The bald old man from Grand Star Hall took one step at a time. All the seals and obstacles in front of him shattered layer by layer under his aura. The boundary of the immortal realm was also crumbling. The shackles of the star abyss were eroding the immortal realm, causing the world origin of the boundless secular palace to flow away. Without the protection of the boundary, the continent quickly turned into a desolate ruin. Su Fang raised his eyebrows. This is going to be troublesome. Don't worry. I'll take care of this for you before we leave. The human-shaped divine artifact celestial treasure said coldly and sat cross-legged on the ground again. Su Fang relaxed and looked at Gong Yu. It was time to deal with this young master divine palace. After 10 years of recovery, Gong Yu had recovered some of his vitality. However, due to the loss of his right arm and qi, any immortal realm immortal could kill him with his current strength. Seeing Su Fang's immortal venerable, Gong Yu was shocked. Su Fang, I've always been polite to you. Su Fang. Without me, you wouldn't have entered the palace without me. Without me, you wouldn't have entered the secular palace. Use why Su Fang you? You? Why? You is translation when I? You what? You, translation Fang art translation why? You made an agreement with me to come to the boundless secular palace. Did you not intend to kill me? Su Fang said indifferently. Translation, immortal translation, compared translations, immortal translation, immortal Lord. However, he had experienced too many dangers and seen too many cruel and merciless cultivators. He had long honed his Tao heart as cold as iron. Gong Yu was a scheming and ruthless man. He was no weaker than Yen Xinxin and Huang Lingyao. If he was spared, who knew how much trouble he would cause in the future? Moreover, Gong Yu had witnessed many of Su Fang's secrets in the treasure refining hall, especially the Origin Sacred Mirror. How could Su Fong leave such a threat alive? Gong Yu hurriedly said, "At that time, you were lowly and weak. You had a palace feather in your hand, so it was reasonable for me to kill you." "Lowly and weak? You can kill me at will?" Su Fong sneered. "At this moment, in my eyes, you are just like how you looked at me in the past. You are just like an ant. It is only reasonable that I kill you." Swoosh! Su Fong's body shattered and turned into a yellow spring blood sea. Blood roiled and swallowed Gong Yu. Gong Yu was able to cultivate a divine arm, so the life essence in his body was naturally abundant. It was not inferior to a Saint Immortal's 9 Tao realm expert. It was perfect for him to recover the life essence he had consumed. Sizzle! Gong Yu, one of the 10 great young masters, the patriarch of the Divine Palace clan, had fallen. A Su Fong condensed in the middle of the blood. Then, the blood rolled up Gong Yu's storage ring and sent it to Su Fong. The Divine Palace clan is indeed powerful. It's comparable to the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's inheritance in any of the immortal realms. Su Fong saw hundreds of spirit veins in Gong Yu's storage ring, as well as countless Tao weapons, pills, and spiritual items. Among them were more than 30 divine essence pills. This was an unexpected gain. Su Fong was overjoyed. He devoured Gong Yu's body, divine essence pills, and spiritual items to quickly replenish the energy consumed to awaken the heavenly treasure. 3 days later. Swoosh! Swoosh! Many experts of the Great Star Hall came to the Treasure Refining Hall. A divine artifact. Su Fong. At this time, the spatial array of the Treasure Refining Hall had been shattered by the aura of the divine artifact's birth. The scene inside the hall could be seen from outside. The bald old man's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw the heavenly treasure. He was pleasantly surprised. Ji Xing Celestial Venerable and Yun Xiao, on the other hand, focused their attention on Su Fong. They were surprised for a moment before they were overjoyed, as though they had accidentally caught a fat sheep. Yun Xiao pointed at Su Fong and said to the bald old man, "Grandpa, this person is Su Fong." "Su Fong? The Su Fong who dares to go against the Great Star Hall." The bald old man shifted his gaze from the divine artifact to Su Fong. Then, he smiled disdainfully and said, "He's a little extraordinary, but he's still just an ant. Is he worthy of my attention?" Yun Xiao said, "Grandpa, not only do I want all of his Tao artifacts, but I'll also destroy his Tao path and hand him over to me." The bald old man showed a doting look and smiled. "I'll do as you say." Yun Xiao chuckled and looked at Su Fong like a cat playing with a mouse. "Capture this person, I want him alive." The bald old man's majestic voice was, N_1. Whoosh! An immortal venerable expert stepped out and came to the treasure refining hall. He formed a seal and cast out a Xian Guang, trying to shackle Su Fong. "This heaven-defying divine artifact is mine." As for the bald old man, he went straight for the divine artifact, intending to take it away. Chi! A figure suddenly appeared in front of Su Fong. It was an immortal fiend monster. The immortal fiend monster spread its hands and cast out the yin-yang immortal fiend scissors, shattering the shackles of the immortal venerable expert of the Great Star Hall. The immortal venerable expert of the Great Star Hall did not expect that Su Fong, who was as weak as a chicken in his eyes, would have such a peerless expert by his side. He was caught off guard and quickly retreated into the void. However, it was too late. Crack! The space was torn apart and the immortal venerable of the Great Star Hall, who had just escaped into the void, rolled out again. His right leg was cut off by the yin-yang immortal fiend's scissors from below the knee. He let out a shrill cry and fell to the ground. Almost at the same time, the bald old man came to the divine artifact. The divine artifact opened its eyes and shot out a light that could tear the void and hit the bald old man's chest. Puff! The bald old man was indeed a big shot of the Great Star Hall. A fist-sized hole appeared in his chest. His body swayed and blood spurted out of his mouth. However, His body was pushed back by the force of the impact at lightning speed. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At the same time, the bald old man sent out 5 cultivators who looked exactly like him. The 5 clones were only slightly weaker than the bald old man. However, they were all at the same height as Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. They charged at the divine artifact without fear of death. It turned out that the bald old man had cultivated the extremely rare Great Tao of Clones. However, the strength of the divine artifact was far beyond everyone's imagination. Although it was restricted in the macro world and could only exert about 70 to 80% of its strength, it was still not something an immortal venerable like the bald old man could contend with. A peak immortal venerable expert might stand a chance. Whoosh! The divine artifact jumped out from the ground. Its speed was so fast that the space it passed by was distorted. Boom! 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 The divine artifact did not use any divine ability. Instead, it threw out punch after punch. One punch shattered one of the bald old man's clones. After 5 punches, all 5 of the bald old man's clones were killed by the divine artifact. The domineering aura was born spontaneously. After the divine artifact's consciousness and ability were fully awakened, its strength was terrifying. With the help of his clones, the bald old man delayed the divine artifact's attack and took the opportunity to escape from the hall. However, with all 5 of his clones destroyed, not only was his strength greatly reduced, but his primordial spirit and life force were also severely injured. After spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, the bald old man's chi was weakened. What a heaven-defying divine artifact! It has been fully awakened. The bald old man's eyes were filled with shock, horror, and disbelief. The divine artifact attacked again. The bald old man was shocked and did not dare to fight against this terrifying divine artifact. He turned around and escaped into the void. The divine artifact chased after him without hesitation. The immortal fiend monster charged towards an immortal venerable expert from the Grand Star Hall and started an earth-shattering battle with him. On the other hand, Su Fong stepped on the fire scar and extended a pair of fire cloud wings on his back. With a whoosh, he charged towards Yun Xiao. Kill him! Yun Xiao finally recovered from her shock and ordered Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, beside her. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, sneered disdainfully. He formed a seal and unleashed a starry sword chi that swept towards Su Fong like a tide. Underworld Reincarnation Sword. A reincarnation divine aura exploded from Su Fong's body. The underworld reincarnation sword appeared beside him and circled around him. At the same time, Su Fong also activated the power of the World Seed and combined it with the reincarnation force to form a shocking whirlpool with the reincarnation Great Tao aura. It sucked in Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's starry sword chi, and quickly devoured it. Then, it was reincarnated and surged towards Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable. The Underworld Reincarnation Sword had the strange ability to reincarnate the enemy's divine ability aura. In the past, Su Fong was still weak and could not wield the true power of the Underworld Reincarnation Sword. Now that his cultivation had reached the 4 paths of Saint Immortal Realm and his purple Chi Dharma spirit had become perfect, he could wield the power of the Underworld Reincarnation Sword above the 9th level. Facing Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, Su Fong could only rely on the power of a Tao artifact. Therefore, he immediately used the Underworld Reincarnation Sword. The Underworld Reincarnation Sword of the Underworld Devil Emperor is indeed extraordinary. However, with your cultivation realm, it's obvious that you have the wrong idea to use a Tao artifact to fight against me. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable's expression changed. He used his bead Tao artifact and released a dazzling and sharp starry sword chi. It shattered the counterattack of the reincarnation sword and swept towards Su Fong in an overwhelming manner. Su Fong did not retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and faced the sword chi head-on. You're courting death. Ji Xing, Immortal Venerable, sneered. Suddenly, a purple chi burst out of Su Fang's body and released a divine aura that made Ji Xing Immortal Venerable's bead Dao artifact tremble. Then, Su Fangdao waved his hand. The bead Dao artifact was not controlled by Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and flew towards Su Fang. With a flip of his hand, Su Fang stored the bead Dao artifact into his body. Under the dumbfounded gaze of Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and many experts of the Great Star Hall, he charged towards Yun Xiao and reached out to grab her neck. =R download address, mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1466. Only then did the experts of Hongxing Hall come to their senses. However, Yun Xiao was in Su Fang's hands. Who would dare to act rashly? Lady Yun is of noble status. If you dare to lay a finger on her, you will become the enemy of Hongxing Hall. Don't do anything stupid. Yun Xiao was caught by Su Fang right under Ji Xing Venerable Immortal's nose. Ji Xing Venerable Immortal was shocked and angry, so he threatened. Is that so? Lady Yun wants to kill me again and again, but I can't lay a finger on her. Hongxing Hall is so domineering. Su Fang has never shown mercy to those who want to kill me. Besides, if I let her go, will Hongxing Hall be polite to me? Su Fang retorted with a ruthless look in his eyes. Yun Xiao was in Su Fang's hands, but she didn't panic or panic. Instead, she sneered. Do you think you can control my life and death? If you kill me, you, your family, friends, and your forces will pay a heavy price. Do you dare to kill me? Su Fang furrowed his brows. Yun Xiao looked smug and shouted coldly, Since you don't dare to kill me, why don't you let go? Why wouldn't I dare to kill you? Su Fang suddenly sneered. You tried to kill me, so it's only right that I kill you now. If Hongxing Hall wants to seek revenge, Su Fang will be there for you. If Hongxing Hall dares to lay a finger on my family, friends, or implicate others. His sharp eyes swept across Ji Xing Venerable Immortal and the experts of Hongxing Hall. In the next moment, Su Fang suddenly pushed his purple Chi Dharma spirit to the extreme and performed the life-shrinking technique. Fate and creation, I control the heavens' secrets. If I am the master, all the worlds will submit to me. If I am the master, all the worlds will submit to me. It turned out that Su Fang performed the purple Chi Dharma spirit and the life-shrinking technique to suppress and devour fate. Purple Chi lingered around Su Fang's body. After a burst of rolling, it condensed into a purple cloud umbrella with an area of 20 zhang above his head. A supreme divine power immediately enveloped the space. Boom! There seemed to be an invisible hand that grabbed Lucky Star Immortal Venerable and the other experts of Grand Star Hall. What divine ability is this? Ji Xing Immortal Venerable's eyes were filled with shock. The great Tao he cultivated was the Tao of stars. Moreover, it was a very unique Tao of lucky stars. His ability to sense invisible fortune was very sharp. At this moment, he felt that his luck was being forcefully taken away by the invisible hand. How important was luck to any cultivator? Immortals possess the unrivaled ability to collapse mountains and sever rivers. But, besides evil path and demonic path cultivators, there were very few cultivators that would willfully slaughter innocent people. This was because doing so would result in a loss of destiny. If one's luck was no longer present, not only would it be detrimental to one's cultivation, all sorts of calamities and misfortune would fall upon one's body. This was what people often said, even drinking cold water would cause one's teeth to be stuffed. However, karmic luck was something that could not be seen or touched. It could not be captured or controlled. There was no divine ability that could seize the karmic luck of others. How could Ji Xing not be shocked when he saw Su Fang using his divine ability to forcefully and overbearingly seize the fortune of the cultivators of Grand Star Hall? Lucky Star Heavenly Luck. A purple-white starlight rushed out from the top of Ji Xing Immortal Venerable's head and condensed into a dazzling star, releasing an auspicious aura that enveloped his body. Boom! The auspicious aura that Ji Xing Immortal Venerable tried to use to protect his own luck only lasted for less than a breath before it was shattered. A large amount of his luck was plundered by the invisible devouring force, but he managed to retain a lot of his luck. The other experts of Grand Star Hall did not have such a divine ability like Ji Xing Immortal Venerables. Although Su Fang's divine ability did not cause any substantial harm to them, each of them had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall them. All of a sudden, they began to panic. The Immortal Venerable expert who was fighting the immortal and demonic monster was locked in a fierce battle with the monster. Suddenly, an ominous premonition surged in his heart and he immediately retreated. Unexpectedly, a spatial turbulence swept over and affected the Immortal Venerable expert's movement technique, causing him to be stopped for a moment. The barrier of the immortal world where the boundless secular palace was located was constantly crumbling due to the bald old man's destruction, causing the energy in the space to become chaotic. Such spatial turbulence could be seen everywhere, but it did not affect Immortal Venerables much. However, it became very deadly during the critical moment of the battle between Immortal Venerables. The immortal and demonic monster seized the opportunity and punched the Immortal Venerable from Grand Star Hall in the back, causing him to be severely injured and sent flying. At this moment, another huge debris was swept over by the turbulence and hit the Immortal Venerable from Grand Star Hall. He lost control of his body, and the immortal and demonic monster activated the yin-yang immortal and demonic scissors to cut off a piece of flesh from his right shoulder. How can I be so unlucky? The Immortal Venerable from Grand Star Hall was so frightened that he fled far away. However, the misfortune did not end there. He arrived above the immortal world, but as soon as he appeared, a crack suddenly appeared in the void and sucked him in, causing him to disappear without a trace. In the star abyss, Immortal Venerables would not die if they were sucked into the spatial turbulence, but they would still lose a layer of skin. The series of events that happened to this man seemed to be a coincidence, but there seemed to be a force of the heavenly Tao that caused all these things to happen. Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and the experts from Grand Star Hall were ashen-faced. They looked at Su Fang with fear in their eyes, as if he was the incarnation of the heavenly Tao that controlled their fates. Everything that happened just now seemed to have taken a long time, but it actually happened in a flash. Whatever means you have, Grand Star Hall, use them all. I, Su Fang, will take them all. If you dare to target the people around me, I, Su Fang, swear that I will remove your Grand Star Hall from the macro world. As soon as Su Fang's voice faded away, he suddenly exerted force in his hand. Crack! Yun Xiao's neck was crushed and the sea of her divine aperture was destroyed by Su Fang's force. She died on the spot. The arrogant and spoiled Miss Yun's face was filled with disbelief, unwillingness, and despair. Even in death, she could not believe that Su Fang would be so ruthless. Intimidated by Su Fang's heaven-defying divine skill and his powerful and ruthless means, Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and the experts from Grand Star Hall did not dare to stop him or take revenge for Yun Xiao. Let's go. Su Fang put Yun Xiao's body into the Zhenlong realm and then sent a message to his second primordial spirit. He then flew out of the collapsing boundless secular palace and into the depths of the star abyss. Elder Ji Xing, should we? An expert from Grand Star Hall asked Ji Xing Immortal Venerable cautiously. While Ji Xing Immortal Venerable was hesitating, a figure flew out of an area of turbulence. It was the bald old man. After he appeared, the bald old man staggered and almost could not stand in the air. His chi was in disorder and his face was pale. There were many wounds on his body that were dripping with blood. He looked like he was seriously injured. Ji Xing Immortal Venerable and the others turned pale with fright. Great Elder Yun, I was lucky to survive and won't die for the time being. That human-shaped divine artifact is also missing. What a heaven-defying divine artifact! After it was completely awakened, its strength was so terrifying that even I was no match for it. Only Ancestor Grand Star could suppress it. This time, Grand Star Hall went for wool and came home shorn. The eyes of the bald old man were filled with fear as he smiled bitterly. The divine light swept over. Yun Xiao and the other immortal venerable expert were nowhere to be seen. He also could not sense their qi. The bald old man's expression changed instantly. Where is Yun Xiao? Miss Yun was killed by Su Fang. Ji Xing, immortal venerable, braced himself and said. Then he told the bald old man what had just happened. The bald old man's deep eyes emitted a sharp, killing intent. A moment later, he heaved a long sigh. His aura weakened and the light in his eyes dimmed. It seems that I have underestimated Su Fang. His divine ability, luck, cunning, and means are far from what an ordinary person can compare to. Perhaps he has already fused with the heaven-defying divine artifact and is now under his control. If I continue to clash with him, I'm afraid that the Great Star Hall will be destroyed. Everyone in Grand Star Hall was shocked. Some of them found it hard to believe the bald old man's words. No matter how heaven-defying Su Fang was, he was only a saint immortal. The overlord of a desolate celestial region was no different from a country bumpkin in their eyes. The Great Star Hall's influence spanned across a great world, and its overall strength was terrifying. How could it possibly be destroyed by him? The bald old man said coldly, Now that the world is changing, 4 divine suns are rising into the sky, and a catastrophe is sweeping across the great world. Usually, when a catastrophe strikes, there will be a peerless figure who will rise to the top. This kind of figure will step on the blood and bones of countless experts to reach the peak. In my opinion, Su Fang is a peerless figure who rose to the top during this catastrophe. Everyone in Grand Star Hall fell into deep thought. Ji Xing, immortal venerable, said, If we ask Grand Star Ancestor to kill Su Fang before he rises, the Grand Star Ancestor is the stabilizing force of the Grand Star Hall. How can he make a move unless it's a matter of life and death for the Grand Star Hall? The bald old man shouted coldly and interrupted Ji Xing, immortal venerable. Ji Xing, immortal venerable, was still unwilling to give up. Are we going to let go of the grudge between Miss Yun Xiao and the Grand Star Hall? Let's just let it go, the bald old man sighed sadly. He continued, The Grand Star Hall is a chamber of commerce. It's not because of strength or killing that the Grand Star Hall is able to survive for countless years and become the #1 chamber of commerce in the great world. It's because of the way of business. Over the years, the Chamber of Commerce's strength has grown and has become less like a chamber of commerce. Instead, it's more like a group of bandits. It's arrogant and overbearing. In the long run, it won't be long before it's destroyed. Pass down my order. From now on, no one from the Grand Star Hall is allowed to step into this immortal realm. Those who violate my order will be killed. The bald old man issued the order majestically and led everyone from the Grand Star Hall out of the star abyss. Before Ji Xing, immortal venerable, left, he looked into the depths of the abyss with greed in his eyes. Su Fang and the monster had been in the abyss for more than 10 days. With their strength, it was difficult for them to continue going deeper. Finally, they arrived above a shattered star. Whoosh! Celestial treasure appeared. In the depths of the star abyss, it actually dared to fearlessly travel through space. Only it dared to do so. That person escaped by a fluke. It's time for me to leave this world and go to a higher world. I'm here to inform you, Celestial Treasure said coldly. Su Fang said, Go. I'll cultivate in seclusion here for 100 years before leaving the star abyss. I'm looking forward to meeting you in the myriad heavens. I hope that when we meet again, you'll be qualified to be my true master. Celestial Treasure left the debris of stars with a cold, stiff, and arrogant voice. Su Fang entered the true dragon world. Then, he turned the true dragon world into a speck of dust and landed on the ground. After entering the cultivation dojo, Su Fang began to digest the gains from the trip to the boundless secular palace. equals underscore our download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1467. His trip to the boundless secular palace had been a fruitful one. After devouring the coiling dragon wood, his dragon-subduing true body had undergone a great transformation and was close to reaching full maturity. After that, he had devoured the primordial purple chi produced when the divine artifact was born. The purple chi dharma spirit had finally become perfect, and the artifact spirit would awaken soon. Although he had failed to obtain the heaven-defying divine artifact made by Emperor Tianbao, he had unexpectedly obtained Emperor Tianbao's artifact refining great Tao. It would be of great help to Su Fang's future cultivation. He could use this rare time to digest these gains. Su Fang's mind moved. A wisp of consciousness carried Yun Xiao's corpse to him. He took Yun Xiao's storage ring and erased the seal on it. He separated a wisp of consciousness and looked inside. In addition to a large amount of resources, there were all kinds of spiritual herbs that Yun Xiao had collected in the boundless secular palace. The flame-containing mushroom that Su Fang was looking for was also among the many items. With the help of the flame-containing mushroom, the 41st Yang Meridian should be born soon. The already matured Fire Cloud Emperor's physique will definitely increase quite a bit on the basis of maturation equals n_1. Su Fang's heart was filled with anticipation. He immediately put the flame-containing mushroom into the yin-yang Dao wheel formed by the 40 Yang Meridians and burned it with the 9 suns' immortal fire. Sizzle! Sizzle! The flame-containing mushroom immediately turned into burning flames and merged with the 9 suns' immortal fire. The world seed also began to absorb the flames of the flame-containing mushroom, causing one of the fiery red leaves to burn like a flame. After devouring the flame-containing mushroom, not only my yang energy, but even the world seed and fire elemental abilities will improve. Looks like I have to continue collecting fire elemental spiritual herbs in the future. It would be best if I could find an exotic flame seed. The fire elemental energy contained in the flame-containing mushroom was incomparably abundant and pure. It would take some time before it could be completely absorbed. Su Fang was in no hurry. He activated the 9 Yang 9 transformations and used the Yang energy from the flame-containing mushroom to break the 41st meridian. At the same time, Su Fang created numerous blood clones to cultivate various techniques, such as the Heavenly Workings Life-Shrinking Art, the True Insight of Misty World, the Yellow Springs Blood Sea, the Heaven-Conquering Emperor Incantation, the Dragonfolk Techniques, and the Heaven Devil Codex of the Devilfolk. At this time, Emperor Tianbao's refining path was added. However, he was not cultivating it. Instead, he was comprehending the essence of the refining path. His main cultivation method was still the 9 Yang 9 transformations. In the end, the refining path could only assist in cultivating his own world. Thanks to Su Fang's perfected body and the 9 changes of the 9 suns, his body was full of yang qi. In addition, he had devoured Yu Jingyan's Dao body, which allowed Su Fang to perfectly merge the cultivation methods and divine powers of immortals, demons, and devils that couldn't coexist. If it were any other cultivator, even an immortal venerable, who had cultivated so many cultivation techniques, they would definitely explode and die due to the conflict of various energies. Su Fang also sent the dragon bird into the Heaven and Earth Dao Palace to absorb the flame mushroom and his own yang qi. Second primordial spirit, Sister Bai, Vermilion Emperor, Tongtian Demon Venerable, Undying Tortoise, come here. While Su Fang was cultivating, he summoned all the immortal demons and monsters, as well as the powerful big goblin. He provided them with the life essence devoured and refined by the underworld blood sea for their cultivation. Up until now, Su Fang had yet to fully devour Demon Sovereign Monsi's body. Coupled with the various resources he had obtained from Gong Yu and Yun Qiao, as well as the spiritual herbs and elixirs he had obtained from the boundless secular palace, Su Fang had no shortage of cultivation resources. The immortal demons and monsters were Su Fang's most powerful combat force. Su Fang naturally didn't hold back. Su Fang had never been stingy with the powerful big goblins, such as Bai Ling. Their strength couldn't keep up with Su Fang's improvement. Therefore, Su Fang also increased the investment in them. Seeing that among the powerful big goblins, only the Green Feather Emperor was missing, Su Fang's mood suddenly became heavy. The first thing he would do after leaving the Star Abyss was to find the Green Feather Emperor. About 10 years later. There was a huge commotion in the Yin-Yang Dao Wheel. He peeled off the Yang Immortal to check the Yin-Yang Dao Wheel. After such a long period of impact, with the help of the flame-containing mushroom's energy, the 41st meridian that was being impacted was mostly burning with Yang Qi flames. The 41st Yang meridian is about to be born equals N_1. Su Fang was overjoyed at the birth of another Yang meridian. Therefore, he gathered all the Yang Qi in the Yang meridian and began to impact the outer meridian. At the same time, he urged the true Qi in his body and the Yin-Yang world force in the world seed to pour into this meridian. He gathered all his strength to promote the birth of the Yang meridian. After thousands of impacts, the outer meridian shook with a pop. Then, a burst of Yang Qi exploded from the Xian Guang. It swept from the meridian that was being impacted to the first meridian and finally returned to all the Yang meridians. The 41st meridian turned into a jade-like Yang meridian. A new Yang meridian was successfully born. The 41st Yang meridian approached the Yin-Yang Dao Wheel and became a part of it. Yang Qi flowed in every Yang meridian and finally flowed into the world seed. The leaves of the world seed had become rounder, and the bulges on the leaf stalk had also become more prominent. It was as if new leaves were going to sprout at any moment. The entire heaven and earth Dao Palace was filled with a divine aura. The dragon bird bathed in this aura seemed to be enjoying it very much. The Xianming Thunder Archive and the Underworld Reincarnation Sword were also trembling with excitement. He activated the Fire Cloud Emperor body. His entire body immediately turned into a burning state like a fire cloud. The area, power, and duration of the fire cloud were more than twice as large as when it had just matured. Su Fang did not stop cultivating. Instead, he kept devouring fire-elemental spiritual objects to make up for the Yang Qi consumed to birth the 41st Yang meridian. He continued to settle in the state of cultivation. Su Fang kept comprehending the great Tao of refining from the memories of the divine artifact celestial treasure and the inner world of his body. He had a deeper understanding of his own cultivation of the supreme heavenly Tao. The great Tao of refining of the celestial treasure emperor is indeed extraordinary. However, it's best to confirm it before I dare to cultivate. Su Fang immediately separated a young nascent soul and entered the origin sacred realm. He dared not make the slightest mistake in cultivation. Therefore, Su Fang planned to find the mysterious woman to confirm his own comprehension first. In the mysterious space of the crimson ancient mirror, Su Fang could already walk and even fly slowly in the air. Such a change surprised Su Fang. The benefits brought by the purple Qi Dharma spirit and the improvement of his cultivation realm and Yang meridian greatly reduced the shackles of the mirror's space on him. He was not too far away from being able to truly control the mirror. "Senior, I have something to ask." Su Fang activated his Yang Qi and thought, then waited for the mysterious woman to appear. In less than 2 hours, the familiar 9 cold Qi appeared out of nowhere. The familiar mysterious woman's voice sounded faintly around Su Fang. "What's the matter? You've actually born 41 Yang meridian? According to your speed, you can actually have 41 Yang meridian in such a short time. This is really beyond my expectations. Extraordinary, you are indeed extraordinary." Su Fang was also delighted to receive the mysterious woman's praise. "Speak, what is it that you don't understand?" Su Fang said, I accidentally obtained a cultivation method of a great Tao called the Great Tao of Refining. I gained some comprehension from it and plan to cultivate and comprehend its essence to assist the Nine Suns transformation. The mysterious woman's voice suddenly became serious. There are countless blacksmiths who cultivate the Great Tao of Refining. What is so special about the Great Tao of Refining that you obtained? How can it be of any help to the Nine Suns transformation? In the path of cultivation, one must not bite off more than they can chew. This is a great taboo for cultivators equals N_1. Su Fang quickly said, Senior, the Great Tao of Refining was created by the Heavenly Treasure Emperor who refined the Purple Chi Dharma spirit. It is very extraordinary. Please take a look. A blacksmith who refined the Purple Chi Dharma spirit? This person is very extraordinary. The great Tao that he created might have some trick. Let me take a look. The mysterious woman's voice became more serious. Su Fang released his thought and was sensed by the mysterious woman. After deciphering the Great Tao of Refining, the mysterious woman fell silent for a moment before saying, Tell me about your comprehension. Su Fang could not hear any joy or anger from the mysterious woman's tone. He felt uneasy as he narrated his comprehension. The so-called Great Tao of Refining is to cultivate the body as a Tao artifact. The human body is the Tao palace of heaven and earth. With fire elemental power, one can constantly refine the body and cultivate the 5 elements as well as the powers and laws outside the 5 elements. From there, one can form one's own world and finally step onto the peak of cultivation. As for my 9 Suns transformation and the world seed, it is very similar to the Great Tao of Refining. My Yang Meridian and the world seed form the Tao palace of heaven and earth. The world seed contains the various abilities of my true body. When the world seed finally grows into a world tree, it will be the energy of the universe and the great Tao laws that govern energy. There are many great Tao in the 3 realms: the great Tao of wood, great Tao of earth, and other great Tao of the 5 elements. There are also the great Tao of emperor, great Tao of sword, great Tao of alchemy, artifact, array, and other great Tao of essence, soul, avatar, body, death, and other great Tao. There are also countless unknown great Tao. Different great Tao cultivators can reach different heights on the path of cultivation. Some great Taos can only linger at the foot of a mountain. Some can reach halfway up the mountain. Some are shortcuts or dangerous paths that are extremely dangerous. However, there are very few great Taos that can truly step onto the peak of cultivation. The 9 Suns transformation that I cultivate and the great Tao of refining that Emperor's celestial treasure comprehended can both reach the peak of cultivation. The 9 Suns transformation is clearly higher than the great Tao of refining. However, even though the great Tao is the same, the two also have astonishing similarities. Therefore, the attainment of artifact refining is of great help to my cultivation. It can help me take fewer detours on my path to the peak, and walk more steadily and faster. These were all Su Fang's comprehensions. Extraordinary. Truly extraordinary. The mysterious woman sighed. Her voice, which rarely fluctuated, contained a hint of shock and admiration. A great world's refinement master was able to create such a great Tao with his own insight. Emperor's celestial treasure is truly a rare peerless genius in the 3 realms. Unfortunately, he was born in a great world. If he was born in a great world, he would sooner or later become a pinnacle expert in the 3 realms. For you to be able to comprehend so much from the great Tao of refining and even think of combining it with the 9 Suns transformation to cultivate the Tao palace of heaven and earth, your comprehension ability is extremely extraordinary. Although it is inferior to Emperor's celestial treasure, it is still rare in the 3 realms. You can study the great Tao of refining, but it can only be used as a supplement. Your cultivation should still focus on the 9 Suns transformation. Work hard. Your physical body has reached perfection, and you have also cultivated all sorts of true bodies. Hence, your Tao palace of heaven and earth is unique. Even I cannot predict how high you can reach in the supreme heavenly Tao. Hence, you still have to rely on your own exploration and comprehension. After the mysterious woman finished speaking, her voice did not sound again. Just like before, she did not give Su Fong a chance to speak. =R download address. Cell phone reading, book review. Chapter 1468. Su Fong's young immortal left the mirror space and returned to his body. My own world will be the heaven and earth Tao palace formed by the Yang Meridian and World Seed. The various true body abilities will be the power and laws of the universe. Emperor Tianbao's weapon refining great Tao will allow me to fuse all kinds of power into my own world. The cultivation of the heaven and earth Tao palace requires the continuous birth of the Yang Meridian and the growth of the World Seed. This will take a very long time. The power and laws that form the world are so vast. I can't cultivate them all, and there's no need for me to do so. I only need to cultivate a few true bodies that form the foundation of the world, and the heaven and earth Tao palace will evolve like the real world and eventually form my own world. I've already cultivated the Fire Cloud Emperor physique and Black Lotus true body. I need to mature the Dragon subduing true body, Blood transformation true body, Thunder punishment true body, and Yellow Spring true body as soon as possible. Then, I'll try to cultivate the other true body abilities needed to form my own world. After comprehending Emperor Tianbao's weapon refining Great Tao, Su Fong had a very clear understanding of his own cultivation path. It was as if he had opened up a path to the peak in the heavy fog. While Su Fong cultivated various cultivation techniques, he took off a young immortal to learn the weapon refining art left behind by Emperor Tianbao. Of course, his goal was not to become a weapon refining master. Su Fong had Old Monster Zhu Tian for refining pills and Dead Lord for weapon refining. Dead Lord's mind and consciousness had been controlled by Night Demon's second primordial spirit. He had become the commander of corpse refinement puppets under Su Fong and was also a weapon refining master. Dead Lord used to be the #1 person of the evil path. Not only was he extremely powerful, but his weapon refining skills were also at the peak of the great world. He could refine a king-grade Tao artifact like the Tiangang Cauldron. However, no matter how good he was, he could not compare to Emperor Tianbao. Su Fong's weapon refining skills was to further comprehend the weapon refining Great Tao through weapon refining. It's time for the Purple Cloud Dharma Spirit's origin spirit to awaken. Within the bloody whirlpool formed by the Yellow Spring Blood Sea, Su Fong's true body flipped his hand and took out over 1,000 magic treasures. Furthermore, all of them were magic treasures with weapon spirits. Activating the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit, Su Fong was surrounded by a mysterious and dense purple chi. A purple cloud swept out and swept across the thousands of magic treasures. Rays of spirit light were sucked out from the magic treasures. All of the magic treasures' weapon spirits were swept up by the purple cloud and returned to Su Fong's body to be devoured by the purple cloud magic spirit. It turned out that Su Fong wanted to devour the weapon spirit, allowing the purple cloud law spirit, which was already in a perfect state, to awaken and continue to grow stronger. Once a magic treasure lost its artifact spirit, its power would be greatly reduced. Furthermore, a magic treasure with an artifact spirit was extremely precious to cultivators. Su Fong actually used the weapon spirits of the magic treasures as supplements for the purple cloud law spirit to devour. It could be said that he was a prodigal to the extreme. If other cultivators saw this, they would definitely vomit blood in anger. The purple cloud law spirit was extremely important to Su Fong. In Su Fong's mind, it was even more important than the origin sacred mirror. In order to make the purple cloud law spirit stronger, he also did not hesitate to invest in it. Moreover, Su Fong had no shortage of Tao weapons in his hands. This time, from Gong Yu's storage ring, he obtained the inheritance of the Divine Palace clan. Just the number of Dao weapons alone was more than 1,000,000. Therefore, he did not feel distressed at all when wasting Dao weapons like this. Rich people were so capricious. After devouring nearly 100,000 weapon spirits, the purple cloud law spirit in his body suddenly exploded, roaring and boiling madly in his flesh and meridians. Su Fang guessed what was going to happen and could not help but get excited. After the purple cloud law spirit's movement lasted for more than 10 breaths, it suddenly quieted down. Immediately, a faint voice sounded from the depths of Su Fang's body. "My master, you actually found that thing and made me so perfect. It really surprised me." The original spirit of the purple cloud law spirit was completely awakened. Immediately, a young immortal separated and came to a deep and mysterious purple cloud space in the depths of his body. Since devouring the great pregnant purple cloud produced when the heavenly treasure was born, the purple cloud law spirit had entered a perfect state. Such a purple cloud space had been formed in Su Fang's body. A purple cloud floated in the purple cloud space, with an ethereal and mysterious aura. It was the original spirit of the purple cloud law spirit. "Hello, purple cloud law spirit." Su Fang's young immortal greeted with some joy. "My former master, the heavenly treasure emperor, called me Az. You are my new master, of course you can call me that." A faint voice came from the purple cloud. Az, the heavenly treasure emperor, has already died in the boundless secular palace. I buried his body in the true dragon realm. When I saw my old master's body, I had already awakened a part of my consciousness and knew these things. The voice in the purple cloud had a touch of sadness and seemed to be full of spirituality. Su Fang said, "The 2 regrets of the heavenly treasure emperor have now been fulfilled. You have also completely awakened. In the future, I will need your help to reach the peak of the great Tao." The original spirit of the purple cloud law spirit said faintly, "Of course. The stronger you are, the stronger I will be. When you reach the peak of the great Tao, I will also become an eternal existence." Then the original spirit said, "I need to keep devouring the great pregnant purple cloud, and it's best if it's the great pregnant purple cloud produced when the divine artifact was born and more weapon spirits. Only then can I grow, mature, and help my master. Of course, I'm very curious about what you will be like when you grow to your final state. I'm not very sure, but my old master once said that not only do I have the ability to control magic treasures, but I can also bring my master supreme luck, and even devour luck. In the end, I can also help my master cultivate a kind of real body." Cultivate a kind of real body? Yes. At that time, I will bring my master great luck of the great Tao, and I can even control the luck of the great Tao. When my master cultivates his own world, I will be the luck of the great Tao in his own world. Su Fangda was shocked and then surprised and happy. At this time, Law suddenly sighed and said, "It's incredible. If that's the case, Su Fang, your own world will be the only cultivator in the 3 realms with luck. I have never heard of such a world. In the future, not only will it reach the peak of the great Tao, but it will also surpass the limits of the world and reach a higher level." Su Fang had always believed in Law's words. The origin spirit suddenly said, "Master, the origin spirit in your body originally had great luck. It should have been a peerless genius, but it was arrogant and unruly. In the end, it was envied by the great Tao, and it had bad luck and almost died." Su Fang couldn't help but be stunned. Law sighed and said, "What an extraordinary origin spirit. It can actually see my luck. However, it has been tainted by my master's luck, so its luck has reversed. In the future, it will definitely rise against the heavens and become a supreme existence." Law laughed loudly. "Thank you for your auspicious words. This is the most comfortable thing I've heard in the countless years I've been imprisoned in the blood jade." The time of cultivation passed quickly. Unknowingly, Su Fong had already spent 100 years in the star abyss. Whoosh! Su Fong flew out of the true dragon realm, and tribulation chi faintly seeped out of his body. It turned out that after 100 years of cultivation, Su Fong had reached the edge of advancing to the 5 Dao Saint Immortal Realm. When one's cultivation reached the Saint Immortal Realm, the further one advanced, the harder it was to advance. There were many reasons why Su Fong's speed of improvement didn't slow down. There were many reasons. The Acheron blood sees devouring ability, the yang energy from cultivating the 9 transformations of the 9 suns, various true body abilities, especially the world seed. With all these factors combined together, coupled with the endless supply of pills, spiritual items, and resources, it was impossible for his cultivation to slow down. There was no trace of natural spiritual energy in the star abyss, so it was obviously not suitable for a breakthrough. Su Fong could only forcibly suppress it and wait until he left the abyss to break through. 100 years had already passed. The divine artifact and heavenly treasure must have left the great world and gone to the end of the world. Although Su Fong had fused with this heaven-defying divine artifact, he shouldn't be noticed by the will of the heavenly Tao. However, Su Fong was cautious. He released a blood-water clone in advance and flew out of the star abyss to the outside world. Another half a year later, the blood-water clone returned safely. Only then did Su Fong fly out of the abyss. Just as he was about to fly out of the abyss, Bai Ling's voice suddenly came from the true dragon realm. Su Fong, let me out. I'm going to become a shifter tharch. Bai Ling was also going to become a shifter tharch? Su Fong was surprised and delighted. It could be said that good things kept coming. Whoosh! Bai Ling flew out of the true dragon realm, drawing a strange arc in the sky before heading straight for a material continent. Her voice came from afar. Brother, I'm going to be like the Green Feather Emperor and undergo the shifter tharch tribulation by myself. You don't have to follow me. Undergo the tribulation by herself? How could Su Fong let Bai Ling undergo the tribulation by herself? He immediately released the immortal fiend monster and followed closely behind Bai Ling. After Su Fong flew out of the abyss, he came to a floating ruin. The tribulation aura in his body had reached a point where it was difficult to suppress, so he could only advance on the spot. Su Fong first used the Demon Sealing Emperor's heavenly seal to create a huge array formation around him. Then, he sat cross-legged in the middle of the array formation. After forming a seal, a wave of tribulation aura shot out from his body. As soon as the tribulation aura appeared, it immediately burned into tribulation fire. At the same time, Su Fong also activated the 9 Suns' immortal fire. He used the opportunity of advancement to further cleanse his marrow and refine his body with the blacksmith Great Tao's mental cultivation method. The flames burned, and the burning area reached more than 2,000 feet. Layers of impurities seeped out of his body and turned into ashes in the tribulation fire. As he activated the blacksmith Great Tao's mental cultivation method, the amount of impurities that appeared in this advancement was far more than before. His body was cleansed more thoroughly. Su Fong sat cross-legged in the middle of the blazing tribulation fire. His eyes were calm. Suddenly, whoosh! A figure appeared above the ruins. It was Master Truth. Su Fong, let's see how you can escape from me this time. Great Elder Yun of the Great Star Hall has personally come. That supreme divine artifact must have fallen into the hands of the Great Star Hall. I have no fate with the divine artifact. Suppressing you will not be a waste of effort. Also, He Yao, who is about to become a demon emperor, will not escape from me. He will become my mount. Master Truth's eyes were filled with pride. He looked at Su Fong as if he was already in the bag. Whoosh! Master Truth swooped down and punched the array formation. =R download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review. Chapter 1469. Boom! The earth shook and the space trembled. The entire ruins suddenly sank into the star abyss. Dijin Master's punch seemed to be able to shake the heavens. However, after the formation shook for a while, some of its imprints were broken, but it was still as stable as a rock. The array is actually so stable. Is Su Fang also an array master? Dijin Master raised his white eyebrows. Obviously, this result was far beyond his expectations. Su Fang, who was in the tribulation fire, looked up with cold eyes. After Dijin Master left the boundless secular palace, Su Fang had long expected him to return. However, he did not expect that after 100 years, he was still guarding outside the star abyss. He also did not expect that Dijin Master, a Buddhist cultivator, would be so shameless. At the critical moment of Su Fang's breakthrough, and when the immortal demon monster was not around, he took the opportunity to attack. Last time, Dijin Master left empty-handed in order to seize the heaven-defying divine artifact. This time, Dijin Master came back again. He must not be alone. He must have invited a powerhouse to help him. But now, he appeared alone. His helper must have followed Sister Bai and the immortal demon monster. Sister Bai is at the critical moment of her tribulation. What should I do? Although Su Fang was extremely anxious, his face was calm. Although his cultivation time was not long, he had developed a firm Tao heart that would not be shocked even if a mountain collapsed in front of him. The only thing he could do now was to speed up his breakthrough, then suppress Dijin Master and go to help Bai Ling and the immortal demon monster. Su Fang's eyes showed a decisive look. He then urged the Nine Suns' immortal fire with all his strength, making the tribulation fire burn more fiercely. In this way, the time needed for the breakthrough would be greatly reduced, but the pain for Su Fang would also be doubled. Boom! Dijin Master launched a fierce attack on the outer array. The incomparably sturdy array was also shattered layer by layer. 10 days later. Boom! Master Dijin couldn't help but feel a little annoyed that he couldn't break the outer array formation even after such a long time. He used the Supreme Buddhist divine ability, Buddha's Wrath Vajrabhati, and didn't hesitate to use a terrifying Buddhist palm print. The array collapsed, and even the ruins where Su Fang was located were shattered into countless fragments under the power of Dijin Master. Su Fang, obediently hand over everything you have. I will be merciful, and perhaps I will let you die a little faster. Dijin laughed loudly and rushed towards Su Fang. Whoosh, whoosh. With a thought, Su Fang released the undead king and the refined corpse puppet from his body. The corpse refining puppets quickly gathered in front of him, forming a vast ocean. There were no less than 100,000 of them. These were the elites that Su Fang had carefully selected from the tens of millions of corpse refining puppet. Every single one of them had reached the level of a Yuxian stage cultivator. Protect Master. Kill. The undead lord let out an evil roar and unleashed the sky-burying underworld coffin, creating a world of death in the void. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The refined corpse army rushed out like a well-trained elite army. They were like fish in water in the world of death. Monstrous death chi burst out as they rushed towards Dijin Master. My Buddhist chi and Buddhist magic can restrain all evil forces. Su Fang, how dare you resurrect cultivators to fight me? Isn't that ridiculous? I'm afraid you have exhausted all your tricks now. Boom. Dijin Master unleashed a golden Buddhist chi, like a Buddha descending to the world, suppressing all evil in the world and destroying the refined corpse puppets batch by batch. However, the refined corpse puppets were not afraid of death. They rushed forward one after another, bursting out their aura to wear down Dijin Master's golden Buddhist chi. Dijin Master's strength was shocking, but in the face of such a large and powerful refined corpse army, his Buddhist chi was quickly consumed. In addition, the undead lord activated the sky-burying underworld coffin. One should know that the sky-burying underworld coffin was a Tao artifact of the king grade, which was at the same level as the Xianming lightning scroll. When fully activated by the undead lord, at least 70 to 80% of its power could be unleashed, which posed a great threat to immortal venerables. These are not resurrected immortals, but refined corpse puppet. There are so many of them, and there is also that evil Dao artifact. Dijin Master thought that he could easily capture Su Fang alive this time, but only now did he realize that he had underestimated Su Fang. I must capture Su Fang alive before he completes his advancement. Otherwise, he will be able to use his true qi to activate that Thunder Dao artifact, and I will have to return empty-handed again. Damn it! If not for the demon's sweeping Bodhi Pearl being destroyed by the divine artifact, killing these resurrected cultivators would be a piece of cake. Why would it be so troublesome? Dijin Master no longer held back his strength. He activated the Buddha's Fury Vajra physique to the extreme again. Rumble! Rumble! Like an angry Buddha, Dijin Master charged out of the refined corpse army's encirclement with an unstoppable force. In just a blink of an eye, he was less than 300 meters away from Su Fang. Suddenly, the tribulation fire on Su Fang's body was extinguished, and a surge of energy swept through his body. His aura was no longer at the 4th level, but the 5th level. 5 Dao Saint Realm. Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes. Flames were burning in his eyes, and he released a fiery red light that shot toward Dijin Master. Heaven Burning Eye. The fiery light fell into Dijin Master's eyes. Even with his cultivation base, he felt a piercing pain in his eyes. Tears flowed out of his eyes and his body slowed down. At the moment when Dijin Master was stopped, Dijin Master's body froze. Rumble! Rumble! Su Fang suddenly stood up from the ground. Golden lightning flashed on his body, and his muscles and bones expanded. He instantly transformed into a giant that was almost 300 meters tall. Giant Vajra body. Clang. 2 golden palms, each of which was more than 300 feet in size, flew toward Master Dijin with the power to shatter everything. Physical divine power? What kind of divine power can be compared to my angry Buddha Vajra body? Su Fang, if you had used the Xianming lightning scroll, I might have been afraid. But you used your divine power in front of me. Aren't you showing off your slight skill in front of an expert? Dijin Master sneered. He ignored the burning pain in his eyes and struck out 2 Buddhist palm print. Boom! 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 Su Fang's Herculean divine palm collided with Dijin Master's Buddhist light palm print. Blinding rays of light shot out and completely covered the light of the 5 suns in the sky. The sky shook violently, and the debris in the surrounding ruins were all turned into dust. The space also tumbled like waves before it shattered. Some of the refined corpse puppets that were closer to the scene were also shattered. There were less than 10,000 refined corpse puppets left. Dijin Master hurriedly activated the sky-burying dark coffin and put away the remaining refined corpse puppet. He also retreated far away and waited for an opportunity to strike. The collision of the Herculean divine palm print and the Buddhist light palm print was actually a draw. This result surprised and shocked Dijin Master. Whoosh! Dijin Master and Su Fang stepped out at the same time and used their divine power. They were like 2 giants, fighting fiercely in the star abyss. Boom! After a dozen breaths, the 2 collided again and suddenly separated. Su Fang's tall body quickly returned to normal. His face was pale and his forehead was full of tears. Although the giant Vajra body was incomparably powerful, it consumed too much yang qi. At this time, although he had 41 yang meridians, a dozen breaths' time was already the limit of the giant Vajra body. Dijin Master had used a lot of Buddhist qi to fight the refined corpse puppet. After this collision, he was also exhausted and his body was trembling. However, the divine power of the Buddhist sect was long-lasting, especially the divine power of the physical body. It was best for a prolonged battle. Dijin Master could still maintain the angry Vajra body state. Su Fang, what other divine power do you have to contend with me? With your cultivation base of the 5 Tao Saint celestial realm that has just broken through, you can still contend with me for a dozen breaths' time. You should be proud of yourself. Seeing Su Fang's exhausted appearance, Master Dijin couldn't help but feel proud. He took a big step forward, his footsteps breaking through the void as he rushed towards Su Fang. Roar! Su Fang suddenly let out a long roar. Once again, his physical body underwent an astonishing transformation. Majestic dragon chi gushed out from his body, and he transformed into a dragon man. Other than the part below his calves, his entire body was like a real divine dragon. Profound yellow tyrant dragon claw. Su Fang's right arm shook and struck out a claw print. It tore through space and fiercely attacked Dijin Master. Divine power of the Dragon Clan. Dijin Master's smile froze. He had to use all his strength to deal with it. In the next moment, Su Fang's divine aperture burned with the Tao runes of destiny. His majestic voice suddenly sounded, "In the name of the Supreme Divine Dragon, with the will of the Divine Dragon, I deprive Dijin Master of his life force." It was the Divine Dragon's curse, a peerless divine power of the Dragon Clan. After immortal Emperor Tian Ong died, Su Fang obtained various divine powers of the Dragon Clan from the Heavenly Tao Immortal World's Dragon Clan. Naturally, he would not let go of the Divine Dragon's curse. Due to the fact that using the Divine Dragon's curse would consume Dragon Chi and Life Aura, coupled with the fact that although this kind of curse was incomparably powerful, it was nothing compared to the life-shrinking technique. Thus, Su Fang had practically never used it. At this moment, Su Fang's dragon-subduing true body was about to mature. When he cast the divine power of the Dragon Clan in his dragon form, the power would naturally multiply. At the same time, Su Fang used the heavenly secret life-shrinking technique to forcibly seize the fate of others. Even Su Fang did not expect this to be the first time he cast it. Chi. Divine Dragon's Curse. Impossible. Even the Divine Dragon's Curse of the Dragon Clan cannot be this powerful. How do you have such an evil divine power? Even my Buddhist divine power can't restrain it. He would never have thought that Su Fang's heavenly secret life-shrinking technique was the great Tao of destiny that could restrain fate and faith. Although the divine power of the Buddhist sect was strange, it could not resist fate. Unless it was the legendary Buddha who had jumped out of the heavenly Tao's reincarnation, there was still a possibility. Su Fang also consumed a lot of energy to cast the heavenly secret life-shrinking technique and the Divine Dragon's Curse. However, it was still bearable. I am the Overlord. My will is the Overlord's mantra. Su Fang's voice suddenly became cold and full of majesty. His voice seemed to be able to determine the life and death of all things. It would immediately become reality. An aura that was above the will of the heavenly Tao suddenly exploded. At the same time, a purple cloud rose from his body. It condensed into a purple cloud canopy that was more than 20 feet high above his head. In an instant, Su Fang seemed to have replaced the heavenly Tao and became the supreme ruler of the world. He ruled over everything, including Chi. Mantra of the Overlord. Su Fang once again cast the supreme divine power of the Way of the Emperor. At the same time, he also activated the purple cloud Dharma spirit. =R download address. Mobile reading, bibliographic review.